And that means that you have to oppose or suppress others to get to your values. That will never work.
Right. And they can change.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, there is no, it's just opinions when it's people trying to impose moral rules on other people. It's just opinions. But if there's a higher authority, then there's something objective because it's outside of this.
Yeah, and you have something over you that you have to be watchful for.
Right.
Outside
accountability.
Men. Yeah, outside men, just men, other men. Yeah. Yeah, I think that if we all have these 10 commandments, it's enough. 10 rules is enough, I think.
Oh, we're down to 2 now in the New Testament. Love God, love your neighbor.
Yeah, but that's people don't understand what that means because they know now the love part they forget about. They don't know what love is. They first have to understand what it is and what it means. And
I want to know what love is. I want you to show me.
And the 10 is basically the marriage, the covenant marriage vows that you would have in a relationship too. So it's easy.
Oh, sorry about that. I was out of context.
Yes, you were.
But it's still Arwen.
It still stands.
Yeah.
I want to know what love is. I can't sing but he's got a great voice, man.
Yeah. And higher.
And what?
Higher.
Yeah. Foreigner. Yeah, he could sing his butt off. What is it? Lieu? What the heck is his last name? Lieu something.
Can you hear me all right, or do I need to wear my headset? Because
perfect, you're perfect.
Yeah, you're perfect.
Okay, then let it be.
Let it be. Let it be. Let it be.
Oh
let it be.
Don't make me turn on the air conditioner.
An answer. I got this one. Let it be.
Ah!
Woof.
I'll turn on my air conditioner, John. Just don't push me.
Is this already recorded, Nathan? Because this is unique.
Oh, shit, I forgot about it.
We'll be live in about 2 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, man, too bad.
You could have been in the pre-show, John.
It's already in. It's being taped.
Well, I started a couple of minutes ago. I haven't taped the whole conversation, but I tend to start recording a couple of minutes before the live one because if I do them both at the same time, it tends to cause issues. It stalls and things. So it did it as soon as I started. I started 5 minutes ago and it crashed OBS. So I was like, okay, great. So I stopped it, started it again. Now it's all running. I know that OBS is functioning because it's recording okay. So when I go live, hopefully everything will work perfectly.
Does it do that all the time?
No, it's because I swap channels on a Thursday halfway through the show and then swap back on a Saturday to do BALLBUSTERS, and sometimes that can cause issues.
Oh, I got it. Cool.
I think we're ready to go. So everyone happy? I'm going to, sorry, right the hand to do this to you, but we're doing a presentation on the PC. I can't have you interrupting it on Discord, so everyone on Discord should be on server mute, hopefully. Everyone happy? Everyone ready to go?
No, it's not time yet, is it? Oh, yeah, it is. Boy, time flies. Yeah, go ahead.
Welcome to BALLBUSTERS Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. If you'd like to join the community debate, then there's a link to nathanoakley.com also in the info box below this video. Joining me this evening is Quantum Eraser, Paula, and Betty. Very good to have you all. Welcome, one and all.
Hello, hello.
Good evening.
Was ist los?
Was this
Have you-
los? German now?
So it transpires in the pre-show, although it probably wasn't recorded, that this is the favourite subject of several ballbusters. Not necessarily myself, although I do love the debating aspects of it, but we're going to be covering the creator versus atheism. So typically on ballbuster shows, when this subject comes up, although aspects have come up in other things that we have covered, we typically just say, in the info box, there's a link to creator versus atheism. It was done on a science versus scientism. The original name, that's changed a few times, so it then became science versus pseudoscience, which is far more appropriate. But nevertheless, that's where we would typically direct people when it came to this discussion. So in this instance, we're actually going to go through it in a bit more detail and involve the Discord server. So what I will do while the presentation's rolling is stick a link to the Discord server in the info box below this video, so towards the end of the show, you can join and present your opinions once the presentation is over. So first and foremost, a massive shout out to Eagle Plane and Anchor for hitting the super chat. Really appreciate your support. But hopefully we'll have a bit of a preamble discussion and then we'll get into the presentation. So who wants to go first?
Paula.
Seriously. Okay.
You do it every week.
I can think of stuff. So
No pressure.
No pressure.
no, I think you're going to start, right?
Well, we were already talking about it before the show began, about God and the Ten Commandments and morals and values. And I think that if people get to know God, then hopefully they can get these proofs first and then go further in their research to getting more into a personal relationship with God. That's my idea of it.
Yeah, I have a link I could spam later, but I can't post it there. But of my thoughts on the whole thing. But I think mainly what we were just saying before the show started, that there's an obsession with, on the part of atheists, for especially Christianity, but religion in general, the same as bald earthers for flat earthers. They, have the same intolerance of people believing things that they don't think they should believe. So that's kind of a connection between the two that I see.
Yeah.
Well, isn't this the ultimate question? This is the
Absolutely.
ultimate question. This is the whole 9 yards, right?
What is that question?
The ultimate question. The creator versus no creator, right?
Were
The
we
full
created?
Monty.
Were we created, or did nature create it all?
Yeah, it all boils down to this question. There shouldn't be any other questions. This is the question, right? This is a personal question for everyone to answer by themselves alone, right? And it changes everything.
I
So
agree.
to me, there is no other question.
Yeah, I think that it's an important question. I think that everybody in their lives should basically consider this question: where do I come from, and why am I here? And these are the basic questions that I think that every child asks. And when we get to adulthood, then people usually let that go because we get too busy with our lives and stuff. But it's a very important question.
And the answer is shockingly simple. And we're going to see that here today. Again.
Well,
Yeah.
every time it comes up on the show, it generates the most backlash. I think that's the right word. More people are put out by it for some reason or another, which I don't really understand. And again, before we started recording, we were discussing things like, is it flyingspaghettimonster.com? What was the other one you mentioned?
Yeah, Flying Spaghetti Monster, Evil Bible, there's Skeptics Annotated Bible, and a counter site, Talk Origins, and the counter site True Origins. There's a long list of anti-Bible, anti-Christian sites by atheists.
Yeah.
Well, the
And then-
question that I was going to ask was, I mean, if there are any Sikhs or Muslims or any other denomination for that matter that are in the audience that know of equivalent sites but for their specific religion, so if there's an anti-Muslim version of Flying Spaghetti Monster, just either let us know in the chat or let us know in the comments. I'd be intrigued to know if there is any equivalents that we just don't get on our internet or however our links work for our language. I just don't know. There may be equivalents that are anti-Muslim. I just don't know. But it was certainly, like I say, it was discussed before the show, and I don't know of any. You may. Any of the Ballbusters know of any anti-Muslim sites that are like Flying Spaghetti Monster?
Not by atheists that I can think of. There's always inter-religious anti this, anti that, when they go back and forth against each other. But for atheists to pick on religion, it's almost always Christianity, as far as I know.
Yeah, it seems that they tend to go sooner to the Islam than to Christianity for some reason, or to Judaism instead of Christianity. That's also a thing. Yeah, I don't know why that is.
Yeah, and they sit back and laugh and sneer, right? When they're Elmer Fudd pretender clowns. They're not intellectuals. They have no idea what science is. Obviously, they just sit back. Oh, you believe in God. What's your proof, right? We've been hearing this for how long? I started listening to this. I went as far back as I could. Obviously, this question has been going on for ever since the beginning, right? However, in the modern era, I tried to go back these debates were 1950s, 1960s, a lot more in the 1970s. I mean, it was really prevalent. It really started to kick into gear. But go ahead.
Yeah, but you see then in later dates that the audience is now more atheist than Christians, it seems, unless they do these debates in a church or in a Christian community. But I've seen these earlier shows or these earlier debates on this topic, and then you see that there are more Christians usually in the audience. So.
And what did they ask for? Right? What's the question? Prove God. Prove a creator. Okay, 12 years ago, I kept on hearing this. I said, okay, no problem. And I put more or less this whole thing together. I mean, there's a couple new things in here, but the majority of it, I put it together and posted it on quote on unquote scientific sites. I mean, it has to be thousands or hundreds of different sites, thousands of times. And what do I get? Right after they say, because I'm just waiting for it, right? It's always going to come out. Prove God. Okay. So I write it up, and what do they do? Can you tell me?
No, hand wave dismissal.
Yep. Whistle right past the graveyard the next day. Prove God. You know what I started doing in the beginning? Because I got sick of it, right? I started putting little comments inside the body of the text. I'd put their name in, and I'd say, so you like to do it with carnival tent midgets, and just inside the text, like a Trojan horse. And then I'd put this presentation out, and no one would say anything. So they didn't even read it. That's how I knew. So I said, oh, so you like to get on with carnival tent midgets? And they're like, what? I said, yeah, I wrote that right up there. Cause that's what I had to do because they wouldn't read what I was writing.
And then they would get mad at you, right?
Yep. That's blind, fanatical, religious zealotry. Like, cover your eyes, stick your fingers in your ears and say, la, 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 over and over again, right? That's what they do. Yeah. That's what we're dealing with here. These ball-tards have the same attitude. And of course, the majority of them are atheists also, right? Same behaviors.
Yeah, but that's the thing also with flat Earth is that if you know that you have a domed Earth, then you know that there's a creation because that screams creation.
Precisely.
And they don't want to go that way because they can't. They want it they don't want the accountability. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's true. But we're going to drag them that way.
But it's not that they do intentionally in full consciousness, but I think subconsciously they're having these issues most of the time.
Yep. How can you have a gas pressure without a container? That's the one. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, Conspiracy Cat's first entering into this arena when he was just some teacher was exactly that. So it was show 322, I believe. And you dragged him around by his short hairs, making him formulate a scientific hypothesis for gravity. But he also discussed gas pressure without a container. Great stuff. Happy days.
Who was that?
Conspiracy cats.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep.
Do we have a quote from him? What was the quote?
No. Well, yeah. Without the container, there can be no pressure.
Is that 2018?
That's 2019. 2018 would be
okay.
without the balloon, there is no pressure.
Oh,
Slightly
gotcha.
different. The 2019 one's far better. Without the container, there can be no pressure. Conspiracy Cats 2019. Great quote. Great quote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. If it's all good by you guys, I'm going to get into this presentation then. Should we crack on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay,
Well, let's start right at the beginning. Creation, right? So, from Alexander Vilenkin, esteemed cosmologist, it is said that an argument is what convinces reasonable men, and a proof is what it takes to convince even an unreasonable man. With the proof now in place, cosmologists can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe. There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning. From Professor Davies, the universe can't have existed forever. We know there must have been an absolute beginning a finite time ago. So there's no question here. He didn't tell you why. So let's get to the reason why. And from the late Stephen Hawking, this argument about whether or not the universe had a beginning persisted into the 19th and 20th centuries. It was conducted mainly on the basis of theology and philosophy, with little consideration of observational evidence. This may have been reasonable given the notoriously unreliable character of cosmological observations until fairly recently. The cosmologist Sir Arthur Eddington once said, "Don't worry if your theory doesn't agree with observations, because they are probably wrong. But if your theory disagrees with the second law of thermodynamics, it is in bad trouble. In fact, that the universe has existed forever is in serious difficulty. That means, let me translate that for you, pummeled with the second law of thermodynamics. The second law states that disorder always increases with time. Like the argument about human progress, it indicates that there must have been a beginning. Must have. No doubt about it. Right?
Yeah, so now look what we have here. First, we have to establish whether there was a beginning or not. And we got some heavy hitters. Alexander Vilenkin, Professor Paul Davies, and the late Stephen Hawking. Now, these guys are hostile witnesses. There is no better witness than a hostile witness. When you got a hostile witness on the stand, you know cowbell is coming next. Everyone pays attention because they should. These guys are atheists. So they are saying that there must have been a beginning. And why? Well, Stephen Hawking tells you the second law of thermodynamics. Too easy. And I don't think he characterizes Sir Arthur Eddington appropriately. He said, Sir Arthur Eddington said, don't worry if your theory doesn't agree with the observations because they're probably wrong. Now, that's not what he said, Steve. This is what he said from the nature of the physical world. If your theory is found to be against the second law of thermodynamics, I can give you no hope. There is nothing for your theory but to collapse in the deepest humiliation. That's it. You're done. And this establishes a beginning. So, atheists, it's all downhill for you from here. Got it? Thanks.
Can I add a quick comment? Or can I give a quick request? Please, for those who may not understand, so that this video stands in isolation, just briefly summarise what the second law of thermodynamics is, just so people have a good understanding as we go forward.
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, I didn't hear you. Go ahead. Say that one more time, please.
No worries. Just, if you can, briefly summarise the second law of thermodynamics so that it contextualises this in this video in isolation.
Right. The second law of thermodynamics can be easily summarized by all spontaneous processes produce an increase in entropy of the universe. Entropy, you can boil it down and say anything from high concentration to low concentration, right? High pressure to low pressure, hot to cold, always. No exception.
Perfect.
Good.
Yep. Unless there's any other comments from the other ballbusters, I'll move on. Betty, Paula?
Yeah, I remember that I asked John a while ago what that heat death meant with the second law of thermodynamics, because I couldn't understand what was meant by that. But basically, all energy runs out, something like that. Was it that?
Yes, that's correct. It's better stated as the big chill.
Yeah, so basically there's also an end to the beginning.
Yes.
Yes.
Has to be a beginning.
And I was just going to emphasize the hostile witness. That's people don't understand how important that is, because it applies to so many different things, that if you have someone who does not want to believe something agreeing with you on basic evidence or logic or whatever it is, then you have a very strong case, because they're biased against their conclusion. So they're not leaving something out. Their hostility is against the conclusion. And so when they support you, then that's a much better witness and more reliable witness than someone who is already in favor of it.
The only trouble with it is when you're dealing with crayon munchers, as John calls them, they would say words to the effect of, but that person says that God doesn't exist in this particular outsert or this particular quote. In other words, they don't understand how citations and quotes work. And we'll just
No,
say,
they get confused in between people's beliefs and what they can scientifically validate. I can care less what the person believes. I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican, or if they like vanilla over chocolate, right? That doesn't matter to me. It matters to me what they can validate. Like, even though these guys are pseudoscientists, I mean, you can't get any more pseudoscientists than astrophysics. However, they know the laws of thermodynamics. So they're not going to come out and compromise themselves. They got people like me out here who are going to hold their feet to the fire or to the flamethrower. So they're not going to do that. So it's a question of what they can believe versus what they can scientifically validate. Got it?
got it. Right, let's move on.
So what you usually get, or what I usually get inevitably, is the quantum fluctuations, right? Well, you've got two problems right there. One, you need a quantum vacuum. That means you need a universe in the first place, and you're not getting any quantum fluctuations without a knower of the existence of the Which Path information. So that one's done. And the Big Bang fairy tale, I mean, it's number one, it's not a scientific theory to begin with. Number two, where'd you get the singularity from? All right. So, like I said, so everyone must be a creationist. The only question is, or who or what caused it, right? Now, this is critically important. There are only two possible answers, that is, ontological primitives, to that question. Only two worldviews that can be held to account for how we, the universe, and us are here. That is nature or intelligent agency. That's it. From George Wald, Nobel laureate, medicine and physiology, he's gonna lay it out for you real quick. The reasonable view was to believe in spontaneous generation. The only alternative is to believe a single primary act of supernatural creation. There is no third position. So let's break this down. Number one, the reasonable view was to believe in spontaneous generation, that is nature or unguided. The only alternative, a single primary act of supernatural creation, God guided. There it is. That's it. There is no third position. So the true dichotomy is nature versus God. Period. End of story. Now, if you outright refute or rule out one of those choices, then based on the laws of logic, you ipso facto must believe the other. It's called a disjunctive syllogism. It's a logical argument of the form that if there are only two possibilities and one of them is ruled out, well, the other one then must therefore be true. Real easy. There they are, right there. It's either natural phenomena or intelligent design. Now, people can conjure all kinds of things, but every single thing they do conjure will fall beneath either natural phenomena or intelligent design. The most common one I get is, the aliens. It has to be aliens. Well, are they intelligent? Yeah, so they'll fall under intelligent design. And furthermore, that's not really saying too much because you just kick the question or kick the can down the street. Because then the next question is, well, how were the aliens created? Was it intelligent design or natural phenomena? So that it ends it right there. This is critically important to understand. And it makes it real easy from here on out. This also pummels the God of the gaps appeals or an argument from ignorance fallacy, right? Because there are no gaps. It's either intelligent design or natural phenomena. That's it. And it pummels the presupposition appeals because everyone has a presupposition. The atheist presupposition is that there is no God or creator. So therefore, their presupposition is natural phenomena or nature created us. So that kind of cracks me up when they call me a presuppositionalist. Well, so are you. It exposes the entire charade right on its face.
Okay.
Yep. So we got the most important ones, right? The ontological primitives. This sets the stage. And it's real easy from here on out because essentially I can stop right here. And the second point was you always hear this, right? People complain about Christians being presuppositionalist. I mean, you got to be some kind of special retard to not understand that you're one also, because your presupposition is nature created us, right? It baffles me, truly baffles me. That's it.
I like the where'd you get the singularity from? Because the last time this came up on one of the other, I think it was on one of the other BALLBUSTERS, they tend to start at that point, don't they?
Yeah. Yep. Have to.
Paula?
Yeah, that's the thing they keep repeating because they don't know what else to do. That's their eternal fallacy, is just to keep asserting that it must have happened some unnatural or natural way, or they push it away from where anyone could examine in space and time and whatever they want to imagine. They push it away where you can't check it. And a single past event like the singularity exploding can't be examined. It's one off. It's done. You have to use forensics to determine, and you can use current scientific laws, but you can't say they were different back then. That's special pleading again. And there's just no escaping a fallacy no matter which way they turn. It's an indefensible position.
I think we had that from Kosho on one of the shows, didn't we? And he was like, well, maybe the physics was different back then. We just don't know.
Yep. Special pleading fallacy.
Exactly. Anything to add, Betty?
Yeah, I think that guided and unguided are key words too, instead of natural and the other. Because guided means that you need an intelligent agent to do stuff, to have thought about it and to have acted upon it. We all know that if you do nothing in your life, nothing gets accomplished. We have to think about it, put action into it, and then it becomes something. And without it, there's nothing, because there is no intent. There's no intent to doing anything. And therefore, there had to be a primal mover, so to speak, that would do that would set things in motion and have the intent and design things for us to work with, like the very dirt that we live on. And I have that joke. I've told it, I think, a couple of times.
Yeah, let's have it. Let's have
joke.
it.
Right?
Yeah, let's have it.
Yeah, so you have these scientists that say, well, God, that say to God, well, I don't need you anymore, God. You can go. Just let us take over. And then God says, well, let's check this. And we both make man, and I'll let you begin. And then scientists say, okay, that's good. And they go to the ground, pick up some dirt, and then God says, well, whoa, what you going to do? Pick your own dirt. Make your own dirt, right? So if you tell that joke, everybody will snicker. But also the complications of that joke are great, because the very thing that we live on, the very things that we work with, are already designed for us to work with. And that's why I say, when people say, well, I don't see God, I don't have any existence, see not the existence of God. I say, well, look around you. I mean, we have things that we see, the things that we can work with. And that's beautiful. And so that's one of the arguments that I usually tell people. And the other thing is, if you see pyramids in the sand, like in Egypt, you don't think that sand, rock, and water and wind will have made that. You know that there is a designer. You don't need to see the designer to know that these pyramids are being made by an intelligent design. So that's it.
Not to mention the fact that in order for there to be a singularity that explodes and certain things happen, they have to have physical laws. Well, where did the physical laws come from? Did they arise out of nature? Yeah. You know, which happened first? They were already following laws to do what quote unquote scientists say they did in the first billionths of a second. They're saying, well, this happened, and then this happened, and this happened. Well, they follow today's known agreed upon laws. Yeah. Well, where did those come from? Laws have to be designed. They come from an intelligence. So nature wouldn't exist and wouldn't do anything, wouldn't have reactions unless they were coded to do that.
Yeah, like the computer program, right? We are merely the avatars of that computer program, but the designer is outside the system doing things. Yeah, so we can only wonder what the designer outside our computer program looks like and what its attributes are, but there will always be greater and more than we can ever comprehend. We cannot make God like us, because he's not. He's more.
And I think it was Stephen Jay Gould, wasn't it, who made a computer program that he thought proved that if you took some random characters and ran them through certain iterations, that you would come up with these comprehensible English sentences, ignoring the elephant in the room, which was, first of all, you wrote a program. Second of all, you gave it rules to follow in how to do these quote unquote random things. And third, you told them what the letters were to start with. I mean, how is that natural and unguided?
You get your own letters. Get your own letters, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. It not only speaks to, well, where did the laws come from? No. Where did the matter come from? Back to Betty's point, get your own dirt. That screams from the mountaintops quantum mechanics. Screams it.
Is that the next bridge to the next topic?
Yeah.
That topic's coming up here shortly. I don't know about an upcoming bridge shortly, but it's going to get there.
Okay.
Like I said, therefore, the atheist creator must be matter or nature, and that is philosophical naturalism or realism. If your choice is nature, you kind of have some big problems. Number one, matter cannot create itself, because that would mean it existed prior to its existence. That's logical seppuku. And from Professor Bernard D. Espignon. Listen closely, folks. The doctrine that the world is made up of objects whose existence is independent of human consciousness, that is, mind-independent reality, or philosophical naturalism, realism, that's atheism, turns out to be in conflict with quantum mechanics and with facts established by experiment. It's over. It's over right there. That is, matter is derivative, the consequent, and consciousness or knowledge is primary. That is the necessary antecedent. Simple as that, folks.
Yeah, it is. Just as simple as that, folks. It's over right here. Everything else following is just barely palpable background noise. I mean, and all you have atheists do is whistle past the graveyard by this. Oh, quantum mechanics is spooky. It's mysterious. Nobody knows anything about it. Yeah. I mean, you got to be a crayon munching retard. We know about it. We use the technology. We know this. You have complete idiots telling you that they don't know about it when we do know about it. And you're going to find it at the end of the presentation where they knew about it back in the 1920s at the beginning. Clowns.
Oh, supernatural. This term has more baggage than Samsonite. But let's break it down. Let's see what it means. So the prefix super means over and above. What does nature mean? Well, the physical world and everything in it. And therefore, natural is the physical material world. So supernatural must mean above or beyond the material physical world or universe. Therefore, it logically follows that the supernatural is immaterial, completely lacking matter and energy, right? So, I ask the question, do these exist? Truth, logic, information, time, thoughts, mass. These are immaterial or supernatural by definition. Unless you can post the chemical formula or structure, charge, mass, momentum, or spin, or the kcals, joules, millielectron volts for each of the above. Can you give that to me? Of course not. It's preposterous. It's a ridiculous question. So, if not, Alice in Wonderland is more tenable than your position. Moreover, in an atheistic worldview, that is, philosophical naturalism or realism, that's scientifically falsified, by the way. We'll get more into detail into that here in a few minutes, which has its bedrock foundation that the physical material world is all that exists. How on earth can the immaterial exist without violating the law of non-contradiction? That is, how can the material physical world be all that exists and have the immaterial exist, right? It's a right in your face contradiction. Like I said, the truth, logic, information, time, thoughts, math are again by definition supernatural. So if you're an atheist and you believe in these, then you must be a supernatural atheist, right? Now that'll give married bachelors a run for their money. Essentially, what atheists are doing, which is really incomprehensibly absurd, they're adopting the Christian worldview by using the immaterial, thoughts, truth, logic, and information, using the very tenets their religion must deny the existence of as the vehicle or medium to present evidence against the very thing they can't believe in, a creator, the Christian worldview. See it? Logically, it's a hammer meets C4 fire scenario. It makes a $6 million man crash and burn look like a fender bender. It's tantamount to attempting to falsify air, all the while breathing in vast quantities to reach the invalidation. Therefore, every atheist is a presuppositional kleptomaniac because they're stealing my worldview. Stop stealing and using my worldview to clumsily attempt to falsify my worldview, please.
Presuppositional kleptomaniacs. Every single one of them. And I just showed you why. This supernatural argument is a death blow. I just sit back and wait for this word. It's a trigger word. Because it's eventually, it's coming up. We got supernatural bird's nest. It's coming up. So hashtag supernatural bird's nest. So like I said, I just sit back, any forum, it doesn't matter. This is coming up, and what's coming behind it. My flamethrower. That's it.
Flamethrower?
Yep. It's a Samsonite flamethrower.
Because it carries more weight?
I don't know. Can you get out of this argument? They're forever. They're stuck.
They try because they think that they also have the right to supernatural somehow. There are atheists that believe in the supernatural.
Yeah, and there are married bachelors too, and achromatic rainbows. Yes, we have military intelligence. Yes, we have all those too.
Yeah. It's amazing to me that they can, but they hold two contradictory positions. It's doublethink and doublespeak again in these arguments.
Exactly, you got it.
Yeah, they hijacked that too, and they say that they have moral values. Yeah, because they were instilled upon people, so we all have them, but. They try to hijack that and say that they can make better moral values and laws and rules, right? So I think they can do better. I think I've seen a sort of a summary, different kind of set of rules instead of the 10 Commandments, for example, and. They didn't cover everything, I think, but they think that that's more coherent than the 10 Commandments, and they try to make their own rules. That's basically it. Well, 10 would be enough.
Yeah, do what thou wilt, right?
Yeah, but if they say basically, like I said a little bit before the show began, that they can. Make their own rules, right, and do just what they want. But if everybody does that and make their own personal rules, then it will be chaos. I mean, I could say a red light is going through it, and another says, well, you have to stop. And so then everything gets convoluted. And I think that now we live in a world where we can see that more and more, that people you have to have so many laws and rules now that if we only would have agreed with the 10, that we would have been done with the 10. That's good enough. But now we have law books full of anything that you can think of because it gets so convoluted. But it's way off topic now. But yeah.
Yeah, being able to falsify is their own agreed upon rule that if something is scientific, you have to be able to falsify it, and it's utterly impossible for the natural to falsify the supernatural by its own definition. It can never do that, and they think that because they can come up with a story that makes sense to them that's purely natural, then it must be true. This is another fallacy where they exclude all other possibilities. But science says not only do you have to say something's possible, you have to rule out everything else. And they can never do that. It's an impossible corner they painted themselves into.
Yep.
Yeah. Nathan?
I've got nothing to add. I'll carry on with the presentation.
Information, the bully on the block. This is critically important to understand. All of the actual sciences, physics, that is quantum mechanics, genetics, biochemistry, are all information sciences. Why? Well, information is more than just a description of our universe and the stuff in it. It is the most basic currency of existence, occupying what theorist Paul Davy terms as the ontological basement of reality. Well, Professor Davies is close. He's one step away. Information, as I said, is the consequent of its necessary antecedent. The knower, or an intelligent agent. Can't have information without intelligent agent. We're going to see that here in a couple minutes. Information, let's define it. This is real easy. Information, the communication or reception of knowledge or intelligence. Just that simple, folks. That's what it is. Codes make up 99.9% of it. From Grunwald and Vitania, algorithmic information theory. And we all know this, but let's let them say it. We repeatedly consider the following scenario. A sender, say A, wants to communicate or transmit some information to a receiver, say B. The information to be transmitted is an element from some set X. It will be communicated by sending a binary string called the message. When B receives the message, he can decode it again and hopefully reconstruct the element of X that was sent. This is very important. To achieve this, A and B need to agree on a code or a description method before communicating. Because if they don't, it's all going to be noise, right? And is it possible for inanimate matter, that's atoms and molecules, to make agreements and communicate with each other? I don't think so. So for information, as we can see, I highlighted a few terms up here. What do we need? For information to exist, you not only need a transmitter and a receiver, but they need to agree beforehand on the medium, convention, and the meaning. Let me give you an example. Which one of these is information? Then why or why not? You can just answer these questions to yourself. Number one or number two? Obviously, number two is information. I mean, if you read English, number two is information. What's number one? Is there anything in there that anyone can elucidate or decipher? Not so much, right? This is just noise. However, after I give you the cipher for one, they both contain the exact same information. Meet me at Joe's for drinks. What's the difference? Well, like I said, we didn't agree on the cipher beforehand of number one. So if I sent you the cipher beforehand, the cipher is every fourth letter. You can go through that on your own. It's the same thing. Meet me at Joe's for drinks. Another example, what's the information in here? Well, anyone looking at it is just going to say, come on, man, give me a break, you know? Well, the information in there is Jesus saves. The cipher that you didn't receive is every fifth, fourth, third, second, first, then start over. Right, and then you can go through that on your own to figure it out. I just want you to get the concept. One of my favorites, and this isn't a personal dig to the audience out there, Nathan. Paul Revere, what's the code? 1 light or 2 lights, right? Well, what's the software or the information? Well, it was the agreed upon meaning, convention, and medium between Paul and the Patriots. Well, who created the software and the message or the information? The one if by land or two if by sea? A, was it the lights? Or B, Paul Revere and the Patriots? Which one? According to a philosophical naturalist or realist or atheist, it must be the lights, right? What would have happened if Paul Revere never met, that is, agreed on the medium, convention, and the meaning with the Patriots and just sent signals, 1 or 2 lights at random from the Old North Church? Not much. Say, we might be having tea and strumpets daily. Moreover, was it the lights or the medium that coordinated the meeting? Of course not. It's preposterous. Information is semiotic. That is, it's not a physical entity or a part of the medium of conveyance. Photons from Paul Revere's lamps weren't physically carrying information. The lights were just the medium used to signal the intelligent agents, who then assigned a prearranged meaning. Now information exists. It is only then they know which path. So you're looking at a code right now. It's called the English language. The software of the information is the preemptive agreed upon convention so we can understand the message. It's semiotic. Without meaning, convention, and agreement, there is no information. And you just seen a perfect example of that with my examples above. It's utter noise. Code, information, software is always ever sourced by intelligent agency, without exception. So it's not only important to know what information is, but it's critically important to know what information isn't. Your interpretation of the physical effects or the consequences of the existence of inanimate objects is not information. It's your imagination. When I put my hand under running water, the water's not informing me that it's wet or that it's cold or hot. When a tree branch falls in the woods, the sound waves aren't communicating me I've fallen and I can't get up. Moreover, information is not the medium used to convey it, and the medium is arbitrary. For example, it's the same as someone writing, "Look out, there's a tiger behind you." That's information. Those are instructions, right? Well, I can write it in just about anything, any medium. Chalk, sand, Cheerios, Etch-a-Sketch, M&Ms, 3/4 inch nuts. I can go up for quite a while here. It's arbitrary. It doesn't matter. And atheists have another big problem with information, because information is neither matter or energy. Well, their worldview states that only matter or energy exist, right? From Norbert Wiener, professor of mathematics, MIT, information is information, neither matter nor energy. I mean, he said it. Everyone, we know this, prima facie. So, how on earth can atheists even account for information existing in their worldview? If you're a philosophical naturalist, realist, or atheist, the bedrock foundation of your religion, like I said, is that matter or energy is all that there is. So pray tell, if information is neither matter nor energy, and your beliefs dictate that matter or energy is all there is, well, then you're in what we call the industry screwed. Married bachelors are more tenable.
Turn out the lights, the party's over. That's it. Information. Information is the key. The logos. It's over. 3 of my proofs below are based on information. Information kills the atheist religion. Period. End of story.
Yeah, but I think that many people have difficulties with that. And I can remember that you had a conversation with Robert Bassano on his channel. I think it was in 2015 with 2 other guys. You got into a big debate with that, because they think that information is basically the medium where it's transported on, or the writings, or something like that. But it's the supernatural of the writing, of the information, basically. And it was really good to see how you said it. And I grasped it, but these guys on the panel, and even Robert, they had a hard time with it.
This reminds me of a documentary I saw. I think it was Nova or something like that, where they tried to show that by analyzing how a brain does what it does, that they could prove that everything, every thought, religious experiences could all be explained by electrochemical reactions in the brain. But the question they never touched was, okay, why isn't the brain a random mass of firings? Why does it have any information? What tells the sequence to start? They couldn't explain it. They didn't even try. And the thing is that there was an old expression for it, that the brain is a machine that a ghost can operate, because the brain itself cannot explain why it initiates thoughts and why they follow any kind of order, because nature has no goals. Nature has no plans. It has no information without it being immaterially added. And so thoughts themselves have to be initiated from the supernatural realm.
Yeah, thoughts, information, intent. Yeah, those are key words, I think, for intelligence, right?
Right,
Yeah,
and sentience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what's information? Give me some info. I want to see the information. I'm not going to go into DNA because we're going to get to that here, but here in a second. But what's information? He just told you it's neither matter nor energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm
So
pretty sure
you
I
can't.
could
Go
give
ahead.
you a bit of a weighing of a measurement of some description of information, couldn't I? I'm sure it's got charge or spin or something like that.
Go ahead, show it.
I know that Robert Bassano said that he was going to see if an empty memory bank
Right.
was lighter than a full memory bank, because then that would show that information had weight to it.
I'm sure that concept.
What I did was I told him to get a floppy disk, and I told him to load it with as much software as he could put on there, right? And I told him, well, before you do that, go ahead and weigh the floppy disk, and then just hammer this disk with as much software as you could put on, and then after you're done putting it on, weigh it again. Tell me the difference.
He never got back to you, did he?
I could swear either my memory's terrible and I remember this from you having that conversation with Robert Bassano, or, and I'm sure I'll get corrected in the comments, I think this is actually a mainstream concept of information having a weight, and I'm sure it wasn't contextualized in the same way, but similar. I'll look into that while we're going through the presentation, but I'm almost certain it's a mainstream rhetoric.
Oh, really? So it's a weight, so it has force?
I think so. I'll have to dig it out to find the context. It's a long time ago since I remember this being mentioned, but I'm pretty sure it's pre-Flat Earth that I heard that idea of information having a physical weight. And again, I'm sure we'll have somebody in the comments that'll correct me while I'm searching it through. But yeah, I could be wrong. It could just be me remembering it incorrectly, and it's actually that conversation you had with Robert Bassano. But I don't think so.
Yeah, well, they get it mixed up with the medium, like DNA being a medium and writings being mediums, but it's just a medium to convey the messages. But somebody indeed there's a code to that. We have words also. Where does our language come from? I think that was also by design. So yeah, for me it's very clear that is something that. Without information, nothing happens. Without the intent, nothing happens.
You're surprisingly quiet, Paula, considering that the amount of information you trawl through, knowledge scavenger.
It's one of those, well, this is all very obvious things. It's hard to find ways to restate it because we've already, just this far in what we've been running, maybe almost an hour. But the thing is, from the very start, it's over because you can't explain where anything got started. Just like with even everybody's thoughts, they can't explain what starts them without appealing to the immaterial and the supernatural. And how can you defend that when it's like building a building in midair? There's no foundation at all. So who cares about how fancy of a building you make and how internally consistent your argument is if it's based on nothing? And that's the whole problem with naturalism / atheism, because it's only based upon preconceived, fallacious nothing. I don't know what else to call it. And its whole purpose, again, is to try to explain the existence of everything with no beginning. And, they'll always say, well, we're talking about evolution. We don't talk about origins. We only talk about change, which is ridiculous because you're saying that we're not even allowed to ask the question because you can't answer it. The stacking the deck.
Wait a second. What's evolution?
It depends on who you ask.
Oh, I'm glad that's just come up. So that's another one of those questions that the uninitiated, shall we say, would whistle straight past.
Absolutely. Because
they
they don't want to think about it.
They ain't whistling past that with me. Oh, no. That's just the start.
But why would we listen to anything that atheists say to us? Because if it's just some chemical in the brain talking, what's the value in that?
No,
Yeah.
they can't. No. They can't even believe that exists. Yeah, I don't think you're grasping the gravity, no pun intended, of the situation here. It is so Elmer Fudd, bash your own head in with the shovel. They can't believe that exists.
Yeah.
Are you following me? Because that's information that a naturalist, information cannot exist in a naturalist worldview. That's it. So this is preposterous absurdity that we're talking about here, folks.
Yeah, I agree.
Move on. Happy to move on? I'll take that as a yes.
Yes.
So now the evidence is we finally got there. We needed to establish those foundations. And, in fact, I really don't have to go on any further. It's already over. But since we scheduled this, we might as well go ahead and do it. So evidences for the creator. Bear in mind, these are not belief propositions. They are knowledge claims. Big difference right there, folks. So let's go through them. Number one, scientific law. This is my law. Don't go trying and ask me for citations and where this came from. It's mine. I made it. So, information, code, software is only ever caused by intelligent agency, without exception. That is, whenever we find information existing and trace it back to its source, it invariably leads to an intelligent agent every single time. My support? Library of Congress, all books, all newspapers, all languages, all computer software. The information age. It's right in front of our face. So, my null hypothesis in support. Nature or natural phenomena causation cannot create algorithmic cybernetic coding and decoding schemes. That's information. If you cry foul and claim that there's no information or code in the genetic code, you're screwed. From Hood and Gallus, the digital code of DNA in nature. DNA has two types of digital information. The genes that encode proteins, which are the molecular machines of life, that should jump off the page at you, and the gene regulatory networks that specify the behavior of genes. From the father of information theory, H.P. Yockey, and no, it's not Claude Shannon, it's H.P. Yockey. The genetic code performs a mapping between the sequences of the 4 nucleotides in messenger RNA to the sequences of the 20 amino acids in a protein. It is highly relevant to the origin of life that the genetic code is constructed to confront and solve the problems of communication and recording by the same principles found both in the genetic information system and in modern computer and communication codes. From Richard Dawkins. That's a hostile witness if I ever seen one. There is enough storage capacity in the DNA of a single lily seed or a single salamander sperm to store the Encyclopedia Britannica 60 times over. Some species of the unjustly called primitive amoebas have as much information in their DNA as 1,000 Encyclopedia Britannicas. So I have roughly about 1.8 million more in support if you need them. So, my position, the null hypothesis. Nature and natural phenomena causation cannot create algorithmic cybernetic coding and decoding schemes. That's DNA transcription and translation. It's all information based. And as we went over in the previous discussion in the other video, the null hypothesis is what? Well, it's the default. We will accept the null hypothesis if you fail to provide sufficient evidence for the alternative hypothesis. So, the alternative hypothesis, your position, which you have to provide evidence for to refute this, because it's the default. Nature, natural phenomena causation can create algorithmic cybernetic coding and decoding schemes. Right? Best wishes. So essentially, you must show ink, paper, and glue molecules authoring technical instruction manuals or blueprints. That's what you got to show to overthrow my null hypothesis or to reject it. Now, the ink, paper, and glue molecules is analog to ribose, nucleobases, and activated phosphates. The technical instruction manual or blueprints is DNA. If not, therefore a creator. Period. Essentially, the syllogism. Code contains information, such as a book, Morse code, DNA, instructions, etc. Information is only created by authors. That's intelligent agent. DNA is a code, therefore DNA has an author. This is irrefutable. All these are irrefutable. You can't touch them.
Turn out the lights. The party's over.
That's
Good night.
It's one of those things that you end up getting totally interrupted, like I've just done when you say ink, paper, and glue. You can normally get that far when you're in discussion and someone will just interrupt you so you don't get the full point in. So it's nice to have it fully uninterrupted.
Yeah, they can't handle that. You can't handle this. I mean, it's... I don't even know why we're discussing this anymore, really. They have no way out. There's no way out for them because it's all based on information. It all goes back to the previous discussions. That's it.
People like to argue that consciousness, whatever you want to define that as, arises from nature as well. And that's utterly impossible. It's the other way around. You've been laying out all their own scientists saying as much, saying that these things are caused by consciousness, not causing consciousness. And they want to have their cake and eat it too, basically. They want there to be consciousness and high and lofty morals without acknowledging that nature itself could never come up with that, because nature has to start with being coded to do anything, to exist. Like you said, nowhere out of it. No way out of it. And I expected you to sing "You Can't Touch This," but hey, you know.
Yeah. So what they're saying is that consciousness is an emergent property of matter, right?
Right.
This is so unbelievably absurd. It's tantamount to saying copper and iron ores, or that the 429 Super Cobra jet Mustang engine is an emergent property from copper and iron ores. I mean, it's that ridiculous. So, go ahead.
Yep.
Next one's quite a short one too.
The next one, quantum mechanics, my favorite. So, let's observe a phenomenon. Photons, elementary particles, atoms, molecules exhibit both wave-like and particle behavior. Sure, you see that part, wave-like. Alternative hypothesis. If the which path information is known or can be known, then we will observe no interference. That is, wave function collapse. That is, matter existing. The independent variable is inside the experimental setup. It's known versus unknown paths. Dependent variable is matter existing. The null hypothesis. So if the which path information is not known and never can be known, then we will observe interference. That means the wave function is intact. That is no matter. So with the experiment, which ones of the thousands without exceptions would you like? From Zhao Sung Ma, quantum erasure with a causally disconnected choice from the preceding National Academy of Sciences. They say the presence of path information anywhere in the universe is sufficient to prohibit any possibility of interference. It is irrelevant whether a future observer might decide to acquire it. The mere possibility is enough. Therefore, The lack of which path information anywhere in the universe is sufficient enough to prohibit any possibility of wave function collapse. That is, no formation of matter. You don't have matter without a knower first. From Yunhoo Kim, my namesake, a delayed choice quantum eraser. This experiment is the undisputed. And if you want to see a full exposition, a detailed exposition on this experiment, stop by Cathexis's channel. I think it's episode 4, Quantum Physics. The authors show not only that knowledge of the which path information solely collapses the wave function, but can accurately predict future actions of wave-like and particle behavior after the signal photon is registered and before its twin idler has arrived. That is, quantum mechanical phenomena transcend time and space. Good night, Einstein. As an ancillary benefit. In conclusion, this experiment unequivocally validates knowledge or knowing of the which path information alone causes wave function collapse. B, decoherence, that's physical interaction with measuring devices, does not cause wave function collapse. And C, QM phenomena transcend time and space. That is, space-time has no meaning in quantum mechanics. Ergo, matter, our reality, doesn't exist without first a knower of the existence of the which path information. And again, matter is derivative, consciousness or knowledge is primary, the necessary antecedent. Another fatal dagger, non-locality, or what they call instantaneous actions at a distance, or what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. The only thing is spooky is his science acumen. So to overturn the scientific falsification of locality and by direct proxy, philosophical naturalism or realism or atheism, whereby invalidating idealism or Christianity, which is not a religion, by the way, and we're going to get to that here in a few minutes. And as an ancillary benefit, collect yourself a feather in your cap, Nobel Prize. Please take up the Quantum Randy Challenge. The Quantum Randy Challenge, henceforth the QRC, challenges any pseudoscientist, you as it were, who claims that quantum physics is not true and that quantum entanglement experiments can be explained by a classically realistic and locally causal model. You not only get the Nobel and its money, you get an extra $1 million in US. All you have to do is prove naive realism or local realism is true and not observation dependent. That's more like knowledge or which path information independent. 6+ years now, still no takers. This is still active. 6 years. No takers. I wonder why. Alice in Wonderland has more veracity and is more tenable than philosophical naturalism and realism. Or atheism. Same thing. Therefore, a creator.
Turn out the lights. Party's over. Hey, am I getting better at that?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've often expanded on that example where you gave the scenario where there's the information lost to a fire.
Yes.
I don't know if that comes later in the presentation as well, so I don't want to get you to just do it twice.
No, it doesn't. Quantum mechanics. I end with quantum mechanics here when we move on to different subjects. But yes, and that's what the quantum eraser with the causally disconnected choice spoke to. The presence of path information anywhere in the universe, that is, it's existing anywhere in the universe, is sufficient to prohibit any possibility of interference, right? That's what it's speaking to. It doesn't matter whether a future observer might decide to acquire it. The mere possibility is enough. So as long as that information is existing somewhere, right, you're good to go. If it can be retrieved or it's retrievable, then no interference. But as soon as that path information is gone, good night, Irene. All you got is interference. Good?
Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
Right, it's actually this one that was a short one, not the next, not the last one.
This is a quick one. The laws of thermodynamics. First law of thermodynamics. The total amount of mass or energy in the universe is constant. That is, nature or natural law cannot create or destroy matter or energy. The second law. The amount of energy available for work is running out. The universe is moving inexorably to maximum entropy, or what they call a heat death, or the big chill. If the total amount of mass or energy is constant, and the amount of usable energy is decreasing, then the universe will end. The heat death, the big chill of the universe. Therefore, it had a beginning, creation, and not the Big Bang pseudoscience train wreck. So, since the first law states that nature or natural law cannot create or destroy matter or energy, and since the universe had a beginning, see the second law, and since there are only two choices, nature versus intelligent design, for the how of that beginning, and since matter and nature can't pre-exist before its existence, then poof itself into existence, and then before that, poof itself from nothing into pre-existence, therefore a creator.
The prosecution rests.
Well, there is actually quite a bit more.
Yeah, just for this one, man. I'm going to continue to go on.
I mean, I'm happy to take some comments on that, though, if Betty or Paula have got anything to add.
Not really. This is the same problem of nothing to go on for the anti-theist side.
Betty, if not, we'll move on.
I think that we said it in the beginning, the things about the laws. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
go on.
I was going to say the same. We did cover this right at the beginning, but yeah. Okay, we'll move on.
Too easy. Let's summarize this thus far. Number one, the universe had a beginning. Number two, the universe is made of matter. Number three, matter is the consequent. A knower is the necessary antecedent. See quantum mechanics and the laws of thermodynamics above. Four, therefore, a creator. Real simple. Philosophical naturalism and realism, that is atheism, is pummeled and eviscerated. Your only other choice, atheists, must assert, like I just said, the train wreck above, matter pre-existed before it existed, then poofed itself into existence. Before that, it poofed itself from nothing into pre-existence. This train wreck directly violates the first law of thermodynamics, the second law of thermodynamics, quantum mechanics, and, by the way, from Professor Shankar, the chair of Professor of Physics at Yale, the laws of physics are always quantum mechanical laws. You don't have separate laws for big and small things, so all of physics is debunked. Fourth, the laws of chemistry. If you take all the physical laws, that means chemistry, biochemistry, all the laws are gone. Five, the laws of information are gone, and ground squirrel level common sense is also eviscerated. And isn't this dumpster fire not only belief without evidence, but belief in the face of contradicting evidence? Right? The best part, creationists and more or less Christians that we're talking about are called what? Right? What do we call? We're the science deniers. What? Who's the science deniers again?
Going on in the chat right now.
Yep, that's what they call us, science deniers, while they deny all of physics. It's hard to even speak to. Go ahead. I'm done. I'm not speaking to it because it's absolute preposterous absurdity.
Unbelievable. That leads us into this. I want to take a little sidebar. We all heard this, faith versus science, or religion or faith versus science. Let me show you this bait and switch. The powers that need not be couch or frame the argument as science versus faith. We all know this. Religion, belief without evidence. That's all it is, folks. The object of that belief is irrelevant. It could be pixie dust and unicorns. If you don't have evidence for it and you believe it, that's a religion. It's synonymous with faith. Belief that does not rest on logical proof or material evidence, right? That's from the American Heritage Dictionary in 1991. Versus science, the scientific method, or as it seems to be. We're going to flesh it out here in a second. On its face, it's a proxy or a juxtaposition on the methods, right? Faith, the method, is belief without evidence. Like I said, that's factually incorrect. We'll get to that. Versus science, the method. It's the methods that are in focus here, the scientific method. Of course, that's not what's going on here. In reality, the so-called disciplines that are screaming from the rooftops that there is no God are who? Well, they're the ones that don't follow the scientific method. We identified the masqueraders in the last presentation. These guys, right? The masqueraders. They're not science. Crocheting is more scientific than these clowns combined. So the science part in the science versus faith is actually religion. These are religion, folks. Belief without evidence. And more importantly, biblical faith has substance and evidence. Let's just take it right from the book. Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So it has substance and evidence. And this is another tiny little problem from 1 Thessalonians. Prove all things. Hold fast that which is good. Hold fast. Right? Prove all things. Does this sound like a rally call to belief without evidence? Or believe without evidence? No. Is Christianity a religion? Nope. It's a contradiction. Let that marinate, folks. All this is just little word games, little mental and linguistic acrobatics. So the faith part in science versus faith is actually blind faith, giving us religion versus blind faith. Well, what's the difference, right? That's what it actually is. Let's flesh out the true dichotomy. Back to these again. Atheism directly violates the first law, second law of thermodynamics, quantum mechanics, laws of chemistry and biochemistry, laws of information, and ground squirrel level common sense. And like I said, isn't this dumpster fire not only belief without evidence? That's religion. But it's belief in the face of contradicting evidence. This is willfully blind, fanatical religious zealotry, right? Who fell for this false dichotomy, science versus faith? So in reality, the true argument actually is this guy. Scientifically falsified fanatical religion, pseudoscience, versus intelligent agency, God. There's your true dichotomy, folks. Let's get ready to rumble, right?
No further questions.
Stepping all over John.
There you go.
Isn't it? Well,
You talked over.
you say no further questions. Isn't it an outrage that they call their side of the argument science?
Yeah, that's how they fool you. It's just a little bait and switch with no substance whatsoever. It's just little linguistic games. That's all you see. If you go onto the forums, you'll have whole forums based on science versus faith. That's the title. I go to the moderators and then to the owners of the site and then engage them. That's what it's come down to, because it's really just, like I said, second grade linguistic word games. That's it.
But the reality is typically going to be, well, at least with you, pseudoscience versus science, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Any more? Happily move on if not.
Yeah. Oh.
Not going to be too much of a rumble. Number 4, the last proof. I got about 30 of them, but we'll just roll with the last one here. Functional sequence specified complexity. What you'll hear people say is, complexity. Snowflakes, they're complex, or bring up innumerable things of complexity and try to muddy the waters. Well, these are complex. How do you know the intelligent agent made these? Yeah. All right. Let's see if that holds water. Functional sequence specified complexity. Hallmarks reveal intent, purpose, planning, choice, interlinked systems, often with contingency, contrived. That is, without deterministic law like necessity. What you don't hear, there are 3 types of complexity. Number 1, random sequence complexity. Number 2, ordered sequence complexity. And number 3, functional sequence specified complexity. Random, just like how it sounds, you pick a handful up, throw it against the wall, whatever sticks, well, there you go. The aftermath of a tornado was a good example. Ordered sequence complexity is just like how it sounds, right? Crystals, snowflakes, sand dunes, fractals. As opposed to functional sequence specified complexity. It puts the lotion in the basket. Sandcastles, the genetic code, barbecue grills, Indy cars, hyper nanotech machines and robots, kinesin, ATP synthase, flagellum, cilia, all these molecular machines and robots, and thousands of others in your cells. So random sequence complexity and ordered sequence complexity, that equals a nature construct. As opposed to functional sequence complexity, that is an intelligent design construct. We can tell it real easy. All of us know it intuitively. It's the difference between this and this, right? We all know the difference here. We know there's a different mediator that's causing this, right? Hopefully we all know that. From the Grand Poobah, Leslie Orgel of Origin of Life Research. In brief, living organisms are distinguished by their specified complexity. Crystals are usually taken as the prototypes of simple, well-specified structures because they consist of a very large number of identical molecules packed together in a uniform way. Lumps of granite or random mixtures of polymers are examples of structures that are complex, but not specified. The crystals fail to qualify as living because they lack complexity. The mixtures of polymers fail to qualify because they lack specificity. From H.P. Yockey again, the attempts to relate the idea of order with biological organization or specificity must be regarded as a play on words that cannot stand careful scrutiny. This is what this whole game boils down to, folks. It's just play on words, incoherent plays on words. Informational macromolecules can code genetic messages and therefore can carry information because the sequence of bases or residues is affected very little, if at all, by self-organizing physical-chemical factors. So what H.P. Yockey is trying to tell you that ink molecules don't conspire with other ink molecules or with paper to go ahead and construct letters or symbols into sentences to form coherent messages. I think he's got a pretty good case. From the king of the laws of thermodynamics, Nobel Prize winner, Ilya Prigogine. The point is that in a non-isolated open system, there exists a possibility of formation of ordered, low entropy structures at sufficiently low temperatures. This ordering principle is responsible for the appearance of ordered structures, such as crystals, as well as for phenomena of phase transition. For water, that's liquid water, ice, water vapor, and snowflakes. Unfortunately, this principle cannot explain the formation of biological structures. So there goes your snowflakes appeal. By the way, no amount of random sequence complexity or ordered sequence complexity or any combination thereof will ever lead to functional sequence complexity. That is, folks, what he's trying to say is that no amount of this will ever give you this. We all know this. Other examples of functional sequence specified complexity, cholecystokinin. This is a peptide hormone that's functional protein produced in the mucosal epithelium of the small intestine and stimulates release of digestive enzymes from the pancreas, vital for digestion and absorption. Without it, you die. Albumin, a functional protein, this is only produced by the liver. It consists of a single polypeptide chain of 580 amino acids. Of its many functions, its main function is to maintain intravascular oncotic colloidal osmotic pressure. It is vital to homeostasis. Without it, you die. You can't interchange these. They are functionally specific, sequentially complex. You cannot interchange them. They are specifically designed for their specific roles and their specific functions. So if you're still having a case of the willful stupids with complexity or mindlessly parroting pseudoscience priests, call or email the SETI Institute, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and ask them how they can tell the difference between random sequence complexity and ordered sequence complexity and functional sequence specified complexity. They'll tighten your shock group right quick. Information, all of biology, that is life, the genetic code, replication, transcription, translation, every single metabolic pathway, all of physics, basically all of reality, are the quintessential examples of functional sequence specified complexity. Therefore, a creator.
I have to admit, this is my first love. This proof right here. It's simple elegance. A child can understand this argument. It's beautiful, really. That's it.
Yeah, irreducible complexity is unavoidable. And it gets orders of magnitude worse when we consider how interdependent not only the cells in the body are, but other bodies or plants and bees and all these things. They would have to have evolved together at the same perfect pace because they're interdependent. And not only are the odds of that happening naturally astronomical, to use a familiar term, but when people say, well, we're going to find life in outer space and that'll prove that we're nothing special, it's beyond impossible that this same miracle that they believe it happened here could happen a billion times every place else. This whole problem of complexity and interdependence is something they just can't avoid. And then they absolutely grasp at straws with their punctuated equilibrium or panspermia or whatever, is the theory of the day. They still, all they're doing is shuffling checkers around the board because they can't ever get out of this corner they painted themselves in. It's impossible to avoid this interdependence and think that it evolved and think that it kept evolving and think that it happened over and over and over again. That's a bigger belief in miracles than any theistic belief I can imagine.
Can I stop you for a second? You said evolved like 3 or 4 times.
That's what they tell me. You know
what's evolution?
Right.
Mhm.
Well,
right. Just the common terminology,
Well, a very good point. I'm not trying to whistle past that, but also you said space, and I was going to ask off the back of that a question to John, who was in these debates and discussions before Flat Earth came along. So when that came up and people appealed, as Paula described, to space aliens or whatever, did no pennies drop, or was there no ideas of the second law, which presumably you were discussing at the time in these same threads? Did that not?
So you're going to throw your partner under the bus here?
No, not at all. I'm just intrigued to know if it ever came up, or when it did, was there any overlap at that time? We know where the Go on, sorry.
You're talking in reference to the flat Earth?
Well, not necessarily, just more that if that came up as Paula described it, they're appealing to space, very specifically, right? A medium that within the Flat Earth community we debunk based on the second law of thermodynamics, which is something that's being discussed in this very topic. So although it's not necessarily going to be on the same thread, but that's kind of what I'm asking. Was it ever the case that it was on the same thread? Not because I'm trying to throw you under the bus and say, ha, you didn't recognise that space is a second law of thermodynamics.
You should.
Oh,
you
should I?
Yeah, because I'm guilty. Yeah, thanks, man.
Oh, well, that's your own self-guilt, because I wasn't trying to throw you under the bus. I'm just saying it's an intriguing overlap that if you don't recognise already, if you're in the discussion and you're reasonably familiar with the shows I do at least, you'll instantly recognise that we're talking about the second law of thermodynamics, and when this particular part of the argument comes up, you go, all right, you're going to appeal to space, are you? Just interesting.
No, and you're correct. I was just joking because you're exactly right. I felt I should be indicted more than anyone else. So I carry that with me. It's my cross to bear.
On the contrary, consider what may have been at the time deemed your peers, who, in the face of this information, would rebel against it and try and find a workaround the second law. That's a fairly common reaction that we see. So for you to go, oh my god, well, that's the correct reaction. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
Right,
go ahead.
I was just going to say that's really the point I was making is that this is nothing new that we're seeing now with denying every bit of the actual scientific method in measuring or observing the Earth that we're on. It's the same tactic. It's just shifted focus from creation evolution to Earth shape. There's nothing new about it.
Absolutely. I could transpose one of the flat earth debate chats on top of the chat that's running by this show right now, and you'd hardly tell the difference with most of the stuff that's being said.
Right, exactly.
Wait a second, she said evolution. What is that?
That's what we called it at the time.
Yeah, so what's evolution exactly? It is an important question.
Like no one knows.
Well, this is exactly it. Can you repeat that, Betty?
No one knows.
And they couldn't define it then. You know, back when they were throwing that term around, it was it mattered what day it was.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on.
Now, let's take a listen on what the legends of physics have to say about this matter. So, Max Planck, his acceptance speech, 1918, for his Nobel Prize. As a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research about atoms this much. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force, which brings the particle of an atom to a vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious, intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter. Now, what would happen if Max Planck was alive today and said this on the nightly news, on the BBC? What would happen to him? He'd get tar and feathered, right? Another one, Werner Heisenberg, pioneer of quantum mechanics. Listen to this one, folks. The first gulp from the glass of natural science will turn you into an atheist. But at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. These guys all knew this. They knew this back in the day. Why don't we know it now? What would happen to him if he did this on national news? Right? He'd get burned at the stake. A couple things pointed out here. Do you guys see the true dichotomy here? Natural atheist versus what? God. Another one, the first gulp from the glass of natural science. Most people haven't even acquired the glass yet. We all know these, right? We all know who these people are. That's a pretty outstanding statement from Werner Heisenberg right here, folks. Let that marinate.
Yeah, we know who these people are. The first gulp from the glass, right? They haven't even acquired the glass yet. We're familiar with them, right? Air is not the atmosphere. A closed thermos is an open system. Snipers don't need to see their targets. Birds humping natural experiments. Level curves. Hashtag birds landing. Hashtag supernatural birds nest. We know who these people are, right? They haven't even acquired the glass yet. And I love the proxy on the ontological primitives right in Werner Heisenberg's statement. I loved it, right? Because it's right there for you. It slaps you in the face. So I wanted to stop here just to drop anchor for a while and really try to understand what these guys are saying, right?
Well, what he's saying very specifically, Werner Heisenberg, that is, the first gulp from the glass of natural science will turn you into an atheist, but at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. That's what it says.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
And they hate that because they have great faith, again, more faith than any theist, that someday, air quote, science will come to the rescue and solve whatever problems they're facing right now, even though they're catastrophic. They still believe and still have faith that the great discovery is just around the corner. It's just like with cures for diseases. It's always just around the corner, and they have absolute blind faith that someday it will be found. And that is why it's called a religion, because they have blind faith in science or scientists that they're going to solve these unsolvable problems just someday. You just have to wait long enough. And every time somebody makes some kind of alleged discovery or tiny, tiny, tiny step, they're like, yeah, we're on the right path to what we believe is going to happen in the future. It's just faith. They can't escape it.
No, let's correct that. They have blind faith in pseudoscientists.
Right. You couldn't see my air quotes.
Oh, sorry
yeah,
about that.
That was it. I heard the air quotes when you said the word science. You even corrected yourself, to be fair. You said scientists, and what scientists say is irrelevant when it comes to a method applied. And I don't think Werner Heisenberg would have said that if it wasn't for quantum mechanics, correct?
Exactly. He's an actual scientist.
Got anything to add, Betty? I've only got a couple more clips. I'll just do a quick plug after I find out if you've got anything to add.
Yeah, well, they always say that Christians that we invoke God as a fill-in for the gaps, but I think that they do this with science. They say, well, science hasn't figured it out yet. It will come in the future. So, yeah, it's for me. It's like they are doing that same argument, right? With the science of the gaps, I think, or something like that.
The pseudoscience of the gaps. Remember, There is no God of the gaps appeal. We did that up top. You can't have a gap. There's only two choices. Or no gaps. The only gap is between their ears, and it's massive.
It's massive. It's a big vacuum, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to say there's a Discord server link, but I've just checked my live feed and it does seem to be a slight issue with it, so I'll sort that out after I've paid out the last couple of clips. But shortly there'll be a Discord link for anybody who's not already part of the Discord server to join and discuss this topic after the presentation is finished. So it's goodbye, you guys. I'll go on to the last couple of clips.
A couple other things. Let's just clear a couple what I like to call background noise, and then we'll finish up here. So we all heard this, right? Who created the creator's creator's creator? That conundrum. This is a fallacy, folks. He is the creator. The creator can't be created, or else he couldn't be the creator. By simple definition. Furthermore, logically, for finite things to exist, that is the universe and us, there must be an eternal, always was source. It's a contingent necessity, antecedent fact. See Aristotle, prime unmoved mover, first cause. To deny this, you are forced into a logical checkmate, then reduced to introducing an infinite regress fallacy. That's what this is. Nothing can create itself, because that would mean it existed prior to its existence. That's logical seppuku. Also, there can only be one creator. Considering more than one, even for a Planck time, is logical seppuku. As for the philosophical naturalist or realist or atheist, they believe that the universe created them, right? Well, I always challenge them. I turn it on them and say, who created your creator? I don't like that very much. So, after all this, we finally realize, I mean, you can't get out of it. There must be a creator. So the next logical follow-on question is what? Well, who is it? This is a systematic method to find that out. This is a personal method. I use this myself. It's quite simple. Since we know from the laws of thermodynamics and quantum mechanics that whoever it is, the creator must be outside of what we call the universe. So, make a list of every single purported deity and their respective claims on how they and the universe came to be. Next, you cross off the ones that are a product of the universe or claim that the universe has existed forever, right? Why? They're pretender clowns, because we already know what. Well, the universe can't have existed forever. We know there must have been an absolute beginning a finite time ago. We already know this. After you do that, there's only one left standing. He's the Alpha and the Omega, Jesus Christ. The largest escrow closing in the history of the universe is at the door, folks. Where do you stand? All glory to him. Thanks for your ear. Have a nice day.
Then that is actually the end of the presentation. So hopefully we'll get some closing comments. I have got the Discord link in now, so if you do want to refresh, if you want to join via Discord and you're not already a member of Science versus Pseudoscience Discord server, then there is a link that's got a temporary membership attached in the info box below this video. Right. Excellent presentation, obviously. I've heard it before. It was great the first time.
The prosecution rests.
Yeah. Yeah, and then people say that after the last argument with all the other religions being of the universe or made within the universe, right? Then you come up with Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, right? So that's what people have to discern, which one is then the correct one. And to help people with that a little bit is that only with Christianity are you not saved by your own works or by sacrificing animals like the Jews did. With Jesus dying for us, for our sins, we are saved by his death on the cross. So he paid the price for our sins. And it's not about works. When you are in Islam, you have to work at it, and you never be certain whether you are saved or can go to heaven. And also with Judaism, that's you have to sacrifice animals, and if you don't, then you are not saved. And now Judaism, they don't do that anymore. So that's why Christianity, for me, is the true religion. But everybody should search this out and read the Bible and get to their own conclusions.
Christianity is not a religion.
Yeah, but I need to give it a name. For me, it's a way of living, but okay, that's another thing.
And I might add, we have a law of non-contradiction violation when people say, well, they're all the same. How can you choose one? Well, they have mutually exclusive properties. If you look at the attributes of gods of various religions, and Betty just pointed out the one thing that stands out that none of the rest claim is that they have someone that was predicted to rise from the dead and fulfill hundreds of prophecies and has hostile witnesses, friendly witnesses. 500 people saw him alive afterwards. And I've mentioned before Simon Greenleaf, who was a founder of the Harvard School of Law, who was challenged to apply legal methods to the four gospel writers to determine if they were credible witnesses. And he did so. He was a hostile witness himself, not expecting to find out that they were, but upon finding out that they were and looking at all the details of the historical record, he had to conclude that this really happened, and he became a Christian as a result. So you don't find that kind of appeal to evidence in any other faith, in any other book. It's almost always the just so stories, which people ignorantly claim about the Bible, but and they even deny that Jesus existed, even though secular sources almost universally agree that he was baptized by John the Baptist in the Jordan River and sentenced to death by Pontius Pilate in the first century. So when people say those things, they're just speaking out of ignorance and violating the law of non-contradiction. So there must be only one, because their attributes are not the same. And which one, then, to me, in my mind, the showstopper is the evidence-based testimony for Jesus rising from the dead. I don't think that can be even come close to by any other faith.
Yeah, that's true. Well, they are superficially the same, but fundamentally different. I heard Ravi Zacharias say, and that's true.
It's just like people. I mean, when someone would say that all gods are the same, I'd say, okay, can I go visit Betty when I really went to Nathan's house? And just because they're both people and they live in houses and they drive cars or what, or walk or whatever they do, they have so many things in common. How can they not be the same? And the problem is it's the differences that really matter.
Yeah. Yeah, but they want to now try to get all the religions together and to forge it into one, I think. And then they say, well, why don't these Christians want to do that? Want to merge it into one thing? But you have to make a division, I think, because we cannot marry all these religions to one.
It's the Hegelian dialectic again. You can't put two or however many mutually exclusive things together like that without getting rid of all of them and mashing them together in something new, which is what syncretism does. What the astrotheologists want to do is to just treat truth like a buffet and pick out the things that they want and make that the truth.
Yeah,
it's like dumping 5 boxes of jigsaw puzzles on the floor and just picking out the pieces you like and happen to be able to make a puzzle out of it. That's not truth at all. And that's what the dividing point is. The watershed is. It's all about what truth is.
Yeah, they want to make sort of a God that is love, and love is in everything. But they forget that love also has rules. You have to have rules in that statement, because you have to divide within love what's not love, right? What's like
right.
Envy and revenge and hate. That isn't love. You cannot marry these things into one. So there has to be a sort of a line, a border there, and therefore you have to have a sort of real rule set up within love, and that means that some people that don't comport to that love bit cannot belong to love, right? It's something that you need to learn also, what love is. People don't think about it, that it's something that has rules, that you don't do things like the 10 Commandments are basically those rules.
Yeah.
I've opened up all of the mics on the Discord server, so if there's anybody who wants to kick us off in there and offer their opinions, ask any questions, you're more than welcome. I'll probably close off the mics of those who don't immediately interject, just so we don't have loads of people talking at once.
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Is that Jessica?
Yeah, hi.
Did you have a question, or did you want to add anything? Feel free, the mic's all yours.
Oh, okay. But I was just I was gonna make a comment on what Betty and what Paula was saying. Like, I do agree that even though a lot of people can find similarities within certain, and I don't like to say religion either. Like, I prefer saying way of life or a practice. But basically, I'm sorry. What I was saying was that, in terms of merging everything together, that definitely is something that is problematic, because you have everything, the way I see it is that everything in different places and different cultures manifested a certain way to that group of people. So to try to merge everything into one thing and say that this is all the same and everything like that, you can't really do that, because people in different cultures, they have a different culture, they have a different history, they have different types of issues. So trying to merge everything into one would be very problematic, in terms of it like even like spiritually that would dumb down, that would water down what the core of what that spiritual practice is. So like I just wanted to say that like I agree that that merging everything together is not really, that doesn't work.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If you see love like the sun, for example, like a burning fire, right? Like light. And if you corrupt that if you corrupt white with black, it gets gray. So it isn't pure anymore. And the thing is that God is pure and pure white, pure love. So he cannot accept anything that is corrupt. So the only way that he can save us, basically, is that he makes us white again by sending his own son to die for us on the cross. And that's how I see it, that we can therefore enter back into God, which is pure. So therefore you have to have boundaries. There are people that say, well, that's not my God. My God is a God of love and everybody can enter. But with the mindset of atheists, then you should think also like, well, Hitler should be also in heaven then, because if God loves everybody, then why not Hitler, right? Even though he did these wrong things. So you have to have a sort of a judge. So God is also a judge. He needs to weigh out the good and the bad, what people done. And the only way that he can do that with an intercessor, which is Jesus. And no other religion has that. That's how I see it.
Yeah, there has to be holiness. That's what holiness is. It's justice, it's fairness, it's payback for whatever people suffered in this life. You know, there is no, I mean, we even know in our fallen state when something was done that was wrong to someone else, like us all being lied to, and we're all very angry, and rightfully so. Well, do we think there should be no consequences for the ones who told the lies? Of course we don't. And this is just the same principle on the spiritual scale, is that everyone is accountable to their creator and accounts have to be settled. Now, God will have mercy on those who ask for it, who humble themselves and say, I'm sorry I did this, you know, I'm at your mercy, you're my creator, and he grants it. But for people who say, as the Bible puts it, it's like the pot of clay says to the potter, you have no skill, you don't know what you're doing, and doesn't acknowledge that it's the pot of clay and created, what can God do? I mean, this is what, if you get into why there's a hell, because hell is the place that God reluctantly will let people go to if they want to get away from him, you know, for eternity. You don't want me? Okay, I'll make a place for you to go because I'm omnipresent. So I had to make a place where I'm not, and where I'm not is devoid of everything good. That's just what people choose. They choose to go there. And the Bible says that God is not willing that anyone perish, but all come to repentance, and is not pleased with the death of the wicked. You know, God doesn't want people to make that choice, but they make it. And then they say he's unjust for making it. And then, you know, they'll continually contradict themselves and say, why is this world such a mess? Why doesn't God do something? And then when he does intervene, like the flood, for example, they hate him for that. Look at all the people he killed. You know, what do they want him to do? They want contradictory things from God. And that's why we got like 181 downvotes so far on this video, because people hate that truth above all others. They hate the accountability. They hate not being God. They hate it that they are not the creator. And they resent it when anybody believes that. And that's where what I was saying a lot earlier about, you know, it makes no sense. It's psychotic when people continually attack what other people believe. Well, this is why, because that's the ultimate end of all of these arguments about what's true and what isn't. It's there's a creator. Oh no, because now I'm not God and I have to give an account to the way I lived, because there must be ultimate justice. And they don't realize that when people get away with something in this life, that would be a terrible thing to have to endure, you know, for the people who are victims, but God makes it right in the next life. And that's why there's a judgment day. And this all makes sense if people just think about it, but they don't think about it. They don't want to. They want to bury their heads in the sand and deny the truth staring in front of them, no matter what the topic is, because then it means that they have to be humble to some degree, and that they are not the cause of all this. They're not their own cause. And it just drives people mad.
I have to disagree with you in one respect. I do think they think about it, even if it's only for a fleeting moment. That's why we get the 181 downvotes, because they've thought about it for a second. And I think you could measure the reluctance to this information based on the number of skeletons in one's closet.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, well, there are two major reasons why people don't come to God, basically. And it's all stated in the first story of Genesis with Adam and Eve. When Eve was being deceived by the devil, because he said, well, you can eat of this tree, and you can be like God, because God is trying to deceive you, because you can, when you eat this fruit, you can be like God, right? So that's the first thing, that people think that they can be their own God. They can be better and more than God is. And then afterwards, when Adam is asked by God, where are you? And then there is another issue that Adam says, well, that woman that you gave me, she made me eat of the tree of good and evil. Like, and that's basically the next part, is that we blame God for everything. So if then when we make a big mess of it, because we want to be our own God, we want to know what good and evil is, and we do the things that we do, and then we mess up, right? We make a big mess of it. Then we say, well, God, where are you? Where have you been all this time? And then we appeal to God and say, well, you're to blame. You're to blame that I'm here. You're to blame for this and that and the other. So we have no accountability. Those are the two major reasons. So if you talk to people, usually they fall into one of these two categories. They want to be their own God, or they say, well, people have had a lot of trauma in their lives, and then blame God, basically. But they forget there's also the devil that deceives. There's a deception in this world. And with flat earth, we see the deception everywhere. And if you can accept that there is a deception all throughout history going on, then I think it's really important to question, where did I come from and where am I going to? And as a Christian, we know where that is. But it is a straight path. We have to follow that path. And those are the rules of love, and that's the 10 commandments. You only need 10, nothing more.
Any further comments from those of you in the Discord server? Sal and
I agree. A lot of times people, and I don't know why. I understand, and at the same time, it's still very, like, just because I understand doesn't necessarily mean I agree with people having the certain attitudes that they do when it comes to accountability. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with just the overall misunderstanding of who God really is and who the creator is. Like, it's a lot of people aren't really, even people who read the Bible, even people who grow up Christian, they can still grow up with a huge misunderstanding. Hence why you have some people who start off Christian and become atheists, because they feel like there's this, they feel like there's this constant judgment towards them, and that they have to, they feel like they're slaves, basically. Like, they have that kind of concept to it, and that's not really what it is. If you really if you know God for what God really is, then you won't have that kind of mentality. And a lot of people aren't able to get to that point until it's shown to them at a certain stage in life, and they're like, oh, okay. Like, then they're able to accept their situation and accept their position. But a lot of people just have this resentment because they don't understand that what they're going through is what's going to make them who they are. And that was the plan that was set up by the creator. You go through things to make you who you are. and to develop like what your destiny is supposed to be. And everything like that, it goes much deeper, and a lot of people are missing that, and that's what's really discerning. So yeah.
I mean, without leading the Discord server too much, is there anybody with an opposing view? Anybody that's got any questions about maybe the ontological primitives or the nature of quantum mechanics, information, any of the things that were discussed on the presentation at all? Anyone in the Discord server? Tumbleweed.
Hold on a second. Does anyone have any questions about those topics?
Which topics?
Well, this speaks volumes because that Discord server is absolutely infested to the gills with atheists, right? Why are they not in there? Support your position. Get on in there, go on in there. You will be polite. Ask your question or make your claim and support it. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Here's your chance. Stand up. Grab your backbone.
Yeah,
this is absolutely preposterous.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
While we're waiting for the hordes to arrive, I'll just do a quick shout out to one of my favourite YouTubers, Dilly Gill. Big shout out to you, my friend, in our chat at the moment. Go and subscribe to Dilly Gill. Excellent videos. Right click his name, subscribe today. I'm surprised too. I thought this, of all the shows, every time this topic comes up, because it's been obviously covered in some degree on other Ballbusters, it generates, the kind of discourse that's been going on in the chat. It's like, why don't you want to actually come and discuss it? Is it just easier to be a keyboard warrior in this regard? The forums get teeming with it, the chat threads get teeming with these people, but they don't actually want to confront you about this stuff. It doesn't make sense.
Well, they want to single us out. I think that's better, to take on one by one.
They don't like the odds. Exactly. They don't have the majority. They know they wouldn't have the majority. And they know we can defend our positions. So I think, like, for example, my own experiences of just hopping on the panel once in a while on the regular debate show, like a couple of days after Christmas, when Nathan kindly invited me on because it was Christmas and wanted to, get my perspectives on some Bible things. And the shrieking from the anti-theists was just bizarre. And you see it in the chat, even now there's every once in a while someone was just spewing hate over the idea that somebody believes in God. I mean, that they think this is some kind of mental illness or something, or a disease, and here we are, in this flat earth community, we're supposed to be so awake and keen to the idea that we've been lied to about a lot of things, and how tolerant we should be of different opinions within us, same team. But not when it comes to that. That all flies out the window.
Yeah, that's a step too far for them yet, I think. For most people. Yeah.
Well, go get their priest then. If you guys don't have a backbone, go get your priest. The Aaron Ra idiot, right?
Yeah.
Those guys. What are some other ones? What's that Sam guy? I challenged him one day and he ran away. What the heck is his name?
Greater Satan? Or what?
Is it a fairly long name?
I can't. He's pretty prominent. What are they called? The
Sam
Four
Harris.
Horsemen? Sam Harris, yeah. That knucklehead.
Mm-hmm.
You can't bring Christopher Hitchens back. They just dote all over Christopher Hitchens, right? Right? He was an imbecile.
You had two Hitchens, I think. Weren't there two brothers?
I don't know. We all know who we're talking about. Christopher Hitchens knucklehead.
Yeah,
right?
Matt Delahanty, you have them.
Yeah, go get those. Of course, you can't get Christopher Hitchens, not without, some serious smelling salts and a big heater.
Well, it would be a blessing for him, I think.
Yeah. Go get the other ones.
Yeah, he doesn't need a heater.
Go bring them in here. They ain't gonna come in here. Because I challenged all these idiots personally, right? Personally. No. They ain't gonna do it.
Well,
Come on.
No, let's list them off again. Let's have a proper poking of the bear. Why not? As we've not actually got them here. Nobody's got the balls to actually come into the Discord server and challenge anything. I'm shocked, to be honest. This is a first.
Well, you will see that on Monday when you have these shows again, then things will be discussed.
Oh, it'll be back to normal once it's there's not a majority of people in the affirmative position to try and challenge the actual position. Like with Paula, she described on the Christmas show. Exactly right, Paula. You were outnumbered, therefore drowned out at the end. I mean, you got to make your presentation. I made damn sure of that. You know what I mean? But by the same token, when it got to the actual debating stage, you just got drowned out by people more. It was majority rule.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to leave this show live for a few more minutes just to see if there's anybody else, because it does take a small amount of time to get through the Discord server and link to it if you're not, it's not as quick as just getting into a hangout. So I will keep the show live just for a few more minutes. Big shout out to 777 for the $7.77. Says awesome Ballbuster session. Thank you very much.
Nice. Nice move. $7.77, huh? Nice. Love it.
Yeah.
So, are you guys? Do you know who this
Very, very special number.
Cosell is? Is that somebody we're familiar with? Maybe Cosell hasn't piped up as yet.
Howard Cosell. Wasn't he the professional debater? That one that couldn't speak the last time? I think that's the other day, Nathan.
Oh right. Maybe he's got something to add. We'll find out. If not, it'll be the rounding out of the live show, and I'll plug my own channel. Big shout out to Tina Baker. Thank you very much to both you and your husband. It's an awesome show. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Tina. Really do appreciate your support, which has been abundant recently. Thank you very much. So yeah, as I say, I'll keep this show running for just a few more minutes, and if we don't get anybody joining in an opposing position, I'll round out, and there will be an after show to follow, so this will be my opportunity to plug my second channel. So when these shows conclude live on the main channel, Nathan Oakley 1980, where you're watching now live, they reconvene, if you like, on the second channel, which is Nathan Oakley. There's a link in the info box below this live stream, so check it out, or if you're watching on the re-up, again, in the info box, there's a link to the second channel, which is Nathan Oakley. And often is the case with Ballbusters shows, especially when the show ends live, people then tend to get a little bit more courage and perhaps challenge us where they wouldn't do it on the live show. So you can see the aftermath of this particular Ballbusters. It may or may not be interesting. We aren't clairvoyant, unfortunately, but as I say, check out the second channel, which is Nathan Oakley. And the link, as I say, is in the info box below this video. Any more brave souls in Discord? No, it's going to be the end of this show, live at least.
Hold off for a second before you close up. Go
okay.
ahead. Anybody else in Discord?
Getting a slew of super chats. Thank you very much to Wade BMX. Sorry to overtalk you guys, and I can't see your name because of the glare. I'll shout you out when it goes up a bit higher. Thank you very much also for the super chats saying gravity is not a force. George Musa from Wade BMX. Never gets old. Never gets old. And great show from, I think it might be Guns and Stuff, is it? I just can't see for the glare. But thank you very much, both of you, for the super chats.
So nobody's saying anything in Discord. How many people are in Discord right now in the live stream?
3 or 4. Paul we know, Jessica we know, SX0 we know. So it's just literally one random that I don't know that we've not heard of us yet.
This is absolutely pathetic. Right?
It really is.
So
I could disagree
listen
with
up.
Betty,
Let's
but
get
I don't know if that'd be worth it.
No, Phil. If you wanna add something that's specifically on topic, I was kind of waiting for you to pipe up, to be honest, but I didn't want to call you in case you were away from your mic. But yeah, absolutely, add because the live show's the one that gets the most viewership. So if you've got something on topic, add it now, definitely.
Yeah, actually, it's actually when way I think it was Paula was describing hell, and I don't know if I look at it the same way. It's like it's the absence of God. I look at it more as it's God's presence there, but it's His judgment. So that's the only thing I guess I would make a point to say. I don't know if God's not in hell. I think He is there, but it's His judgment being poured out. And then also that's what we're saved from is His judgment. I think that's the only point of difference I would say, because I came in at the end, so I don't know the whole conversation up to that point.
Yeah, it's really kind of splitting hairs at that point. Just trying to convey the idea of why there was a hell. That it's the place of not God is the simplest way I can put it, as far as everything good coming from God. Therefore, if someone has chosen for eternity that they want nothing to do with God, then he made a place for them. So that's the angle I was approaching that from.
Oh yeah, that is. Yeah, you're right. It's about splitting hairs, but that's the only way I would describe it, just a little differently. So, because I think it's more wrathful in that sense than just his absence in the other sense.
Right.
So no one else.
Yeah, there's a new guy in. Maybe he wants to talk.
Okay.
A guy named Fosh. Can you talk? Just came out new. Maybe Discord is new to him.
You want me to? No, he's not server muted. Flash him, but we hear nothing.
Yeah.
No, you've got mic issues, my friend, I'm afraid. As Discord's definitely working.
So, okay, it's a little bit unfair to be calling these people out. They were probably busy. They didn't know this was happening. No problem. Plenty of atheists have heard my presentation here. So we'll just leave it open. They can come in anytime. The invitation is open anytime for the 4 horses' asses. I mean, the 4 horsemen. Well, there's only 3 horses' assmen. I mean, 3 horsemen. You got Dick Dawkins, you got that Sam Harris, and the Dennett guy. So get on the email, get on the calls, and saying there's this creationist over here that's calling them retards. Because that's what they are. And they're professing their retardia, right? Just come on over here. The water's warm, and then we'll get the cases. Thanks.
And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who have joined us in the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream. Last but not least, a massive shout out to Fons Arella for the super chat. I disagree, but love your show. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. You're a bit late on the disagreeing bit, but thank you very much. If you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley after show, then stay tuned, as there will be more to follow. A massive thank you to all of the Ballbusters. That's Paula, otherwise known as Knowledge Scavenger, Betty Van Velsen, and Quantum Eraser. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the Discord server for making the interactive after show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on Nathan Oakley YouTube channel, and I'll see you all in the next Ballbusters.
Same thing. I hate that I missed majority of it, but I'm pretty sure it was pretty good.
Hey, watch your mic,
I just
Jessica.
jumped in at the last minute.
Your mics are open.
Yeah, everyone's mic is open now. Let chaos commence. But preferably not audio
Let
chaos.
the what commence?
Chaos.
Yeah, verbal chaos, just not audio chaos. So if you're not talking, try and stay on mute if you're in the Discord server.
You might want to say that again, Nathan, a little louder so they can hear you.
If you're in the Discord server, try to keep yourselves on mute if you're not talking. Not that we've had much conversation out of you guys, if I'm honest. Talking to the people in opposition, not the people who actually spoke.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's there for, really. I mean, I'm appreciative of all the people who do join, but it's really there for people to come in and disagree, right? That's the whole point.
Right.
Yeah, and we usually have those. That's the strange thing about it. I mean, John and I were in here a couple of times in Discord, waiting for people to come along, and usually we're all these kind of people that oppose our views, right? So it's really amazing that there are more people that agree with us than disagree. It's funny.
Yeah.
I've seen so many flat earthers in my Discord server lately. It's amazing.
Oh, you've got more? You've got more flat earthers now?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say you got
Just
more
tell-
flat earthers now. Is that what you were just saying, Betty?
So sorry, you got out.
Did you say you got an increase in flat earthers now on your Discord server?
Yeah, there are more now than I had previously. Yeah, it's amazing. And the ones that
You can start splitting hairs.
Well, I like it because I asked for them. But it's amazing that they usually want to debate the flat earthers, and now there are a lot of people in here and nobody's here. So it's amazing.
Maybe they got their hands full. All the atheists got their hands full with gravity now, right? They can't concentrate on two or more things at the same time because you're getting your asses handed to you with gravity. And I'm laughing at you, just by the way.
Also, that
You just destroyed their god. That's why.
There's also a thing on the non sequitur where Rich Rhetoric is debating a flat earther, I think. So maybe they have a little bit of competition going on as well.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. Is he going to bring his tilted shelf in? The friggin' retard, he got his friggin' science and basic reasoning acumen out of a Cracker Jack box. What if he's one of the king retards? Non sequitur show.
Yes,
That's an appropriate
Jessica.
name for those idiots. Steve McClown of the Clan McClowns. There could be only one, Steve. Idiot.
Well, speaking about Steve, I know that I had a written debate a little bit with him. And I said, well, what if there was a creator and he would be on your doorstep? What would be the first question that would roll out of your mouth? And he said something, I have to think how he put it. Why did you make all these creationist retards? He said.
Are you serious?
Which I found funny because he would immediately know that everything that we said about being a creationist was right.
Yeah, Steve McClown ran into him when I first come out here too. He was on one of the hangouts. It was me against like 8 of them. Steve McClown, right? I'll debate you, you creationist. I've debated the top creationists in the land, and they didn't survive. Okay, Steve, go ahead and give me your email address, right? Right? Give me that email address real quick. I wanted it right when I was on the show so he couldn't weasel his way out. So we confirmed it. I got his email address before he left. And then I get in contact with him and he's talking about, yep, we're ready. We're ready. This was a debate between me and you. Oh no, I got a PhD panel on here that's ready to debate. I said, are you kidding me? You yellow spine coward. I got this email. We'll go through the email too, if we have to, because I still got it, right? So I said, no problem. I'll take each of your PhD idiots on one at a time. That's fair. That's reasonable. But this debate is between me and you. Oh, I can't have any of that. You friggin' coward. Then I challenged behind his back all his PhD idiots. I went and chased them down, including Mary Schweitzer. Of course, she's not an atheist. Professor P.Z. Myers, and a number of other PhD idiots on his panel. They all of a sudden know speak as the English, right? They're not as dumb as they look. Clowns.
Yeah. It's amazing that on the non sequitur we see every time they can find people on the flat earth side, on the creationist side, on the other side, at least than they have positioned themselves, and they say that we are the cowards on our side. But I think it's the other way around, because when we are in the majority, the bias is a little bit more on the God believing side, then there's no one here.
Yep, that's what they do. They went to the incoherent Hillary Clinton Academy of charging others with what they do. Yeah, they think they're clever with that little nonsense. Well, yeah, everyone knows that can fog a mirror. They can see. You're not fooling anyone.
Yeah,
that's the really hilarious part out of it. That you think you're fooling people with your little Hillary Clinton tactics, right? The people are laughing at you, idiots. Just to let you know.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well, I would love to see you in a debate with Aaron Ra, for example. But then again, there has to be a good moderator because
Aaron Ra.
He overtalks. He is so blatantly.
He has no science education whatsoever. That debate.
know.
Oh, he'll bring my 12-year-old son in here.
I know.
Aaron Ra will last about a minute, just with his opening statement.
Yeah, but that would be a good minute.
Yeah. I need some more cowbell.
I've never heard him say anything that made any sense or of substance. And one time I posted, and we talked about it already in other Ballbusters, underneath one of these videos where he invoked the scientific method, that he said, well, we have the scientific method. And I said, well, post 2 of your experiments or hypotheses to my post, because I am wondering where these are. And I got nothing. I got a whole gang of people on my back with you must be a creationist and stuff. And that was more interesting for them to know than to post or to see him post any evidence of what he just said in the video. It was, and now I cannot find the video anymore. I don't know whether it still exists, but it's ridiculous. I'd really like to see it.
That's not atypical behavior. About 7 years ago, I was on a really popular evolution pummeling forum, and we had some big hitters in there, right? And I befriended somebody who that had a degree in biochemistry, so we had a lot in common. And he talked about before I joined the forum that he challenged Aaron Ra. I think it was on Don't quote me. I think it's called the League of Reason forum. That's resonating with me for some reason. I think it's called the League of Reason. What a joke, right? And a lot of Aaron Ra's buddies was on this forum that I joined, and they were challenging my biochemistry buddy. And I just sit back and laugh because I already know what's going to happen. And my buddy went on to that League of Reason forum, and he showed me the whole because the forum that he joined was hidden to everyone else, but my buddy had screenshotted it, a bunch of screenshots. He was whipping these guys all of because what they do is they sick their minions, on each creationist, like 20 or 30 of them at a time. Typical behavior, and they try to derail them. You should have seen this. It was a massacre, and Aaron Ra never showed up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a long time ago, man. A lot of memories with that.
What I do not understand is that they hate Christians being evangelists, so like bringing the things to people and being on streets and telling about the Bible and stuff. But they do some of the same things. They make all videos and try to convert or to get people out of Christianity. And then I think, well, why would you do that what's the harm in believing instead of not believing? I mean, why do they make such a sort of a quest for getting people out of the religion, or what they say that is religion?
Another tactic that they employ is they prey upon the weak. Like people with no science acumen, no education, right? I see them do that all the time, right? So, come on, try that with me. I triple dog dare you.
Yeah, but they know this, huh? That's why Steve didn't want to debate you.
And I think they overload you with information too. They flood it through where you can't just, or with all this information that you can't deal with. You know, if you take your time, you could probably pick apart each piece if they give you time, but they don't give you time to do it either. So they kind of water hose you.
Well, and that's a very important point. And that was one of the points where I asked to debate. And I'm always saying this, that a debate should be by point, claim, support, stop. Then the next person, claim, support, stop. If you want to challenge that claim, then you have a certain amount of time, 2 minutes to challenge. And then that point gets exhausted to the end before another point is brought up. Because you can't have a debate where the person gets 5-minute introduction, talks about 25 things that from Make Shit Up University, and you have the opponent over there. Well, he's not privy to the introduction, so he's got his own introduction. He's not paying any attention, right? It's just a big gaggle screw. So what you do with these debates, and that's why they won't do them, because too many people will come and watch this. So you give a little introduction, 2-minute introduction on who you are, and then the first person goes, claim, very concise, then support right underneath it, stop. And then the next person comes up against or provides rebuttal. See where I'm going with this? Until exhaustion of that one subject right there. Then the moderator says, okay, next claim. And it could be by the next person that's in the debate. It's same thing. Claim, support, and then refutation. You see how I'm doing this?
Yeah.
That's what I want to see.
But
that's a debate to me.
Yeah, but these topics are usually too big of contents.
No, then you just take a slice.
Yeah, they do. They need to do that, but they don't narrow it down enough because then these people get all over the place, and certain points don't get addressed, and then people get away with it.
So just take the last debate on Nathan's show between Bad Christian and whoever the other I don't know who,
and Joshua.
JM Truth. Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm not throwing Nathan under the bus. I'm just putting this out there to think about. A 2-minute introduction, who you are, right? And then the claim. What would his claim? Because he went on this rambling friggin' diatribe on his nonsense, right? It should have been eating meat is a sin. Here's my support. And it better, that support better be to the topic or stop him. See where I'm going with this?
That brings up the other thing too, is that they changed the rules in midstream too. That's another thing.
Well, to be fair to that particular discussion, Paula had prepared a full presentation, as had he. So that just ended up being the way it was. But there was a, back and forth at the end, which immediately, as you rightly point out, it gets out of hand when you've got a scattergun approach with endless claims being made and going off topic completely, red herring here and there. It needs to be claim, support, rebuttal.
Yes.
Yeah,
no presentations.
More structure to the debate, but I think that the debate was a little bit set up too quickly, maybe. And
it was a mess from the start. At first, I was pressured into it without any preparation really at all, and then we didn't hear from them at all. But it was stated in front of witnesses at the time I accepted that this was to be on what the Bible says now in original languages, not what it should have said or something other than the Bible says. But that's how it started. I mean, that the affirmative went first, and that's how it started, was going outside the Bible, which, I shouldn't have allowed. I mean, there comes a point where you don't want to back out, even though you have every right to do so. But I'm just glad it's over with.
Well, I think you did really great anyway. I mean, I think that you made a lot of good points. And I think that they thought that they could get you on the translations and stuff, and they underestimated the knowledge that you had about Greek, for example. And therefore, then it became more personal because they wanted to get at you. That was my idea, and I see this happen in many of these debates. First, it is on topic, then they feel that they can't win, and then they get personal with people. And in the professional debates, you don't see that. It's more structured, and you don't see that happen.
Right, and having the person who arranged it, who pressured for it in the first place, jump on the other side at the end was totally unfair. And so, like I said, it just wasn't even though I stated conditions under which I would debate and they weren't followed, I think it would have to be absolutely set in stone. That someone if makes a challenge and they argue the affirmative, and like John said here, you make that statement. That's the point under debate, and you don't deviate from that point. But it's the internet and this stuff happens. So.
Just before you do, Paul, had that been the case though, Paula, that discussion would have lasted seconds. Because
exactly,
there would have been. They essentially could only do that within a completely untenable position to begin with, which they had. Now you expose that beautifully, but the only way that'll ever happen is if they take the out of context approach, rejig what they mean, or hope that you don't know what the original context is to begin with, having studied it really carefully. They did absolutely underestimate what they were up against with you, but that's why you were the perfect person. But as I say, had that been adhered to, the conversation would have lasted 30 seconds, tops.
And I have to think that things like this happen for reasons, and it did expose some things. So it did serve a good purpose, I think. But on the other hand, it also should serve as a caution for anything that happens in the future. Not that I plan to debate any, I don't like to debate anyway. I like to just put stuff on my channel or my website and present it, and people can come and go and look at it if they want, but there's a purpose for everything. It had to happen, I guess. And I think some good things can come out of it. So, but I'm grateful that you handled it the way you did, even though there were rules being broken, that it went forward anyway, because it did show that there is an answer for this argument. Because what I've been trying to say to my friends and other, Bible study discords and things is we need to make a public presence, because there's so many people like them saying all these things about the Bible and what it should have been and could have been, and that it teaches the wrong things, and the God of the Old Testament is evil, and all these things are being said over and over in all the, no matter what the channel's about. But we don't have a presence that's actually countering those statements. And instead, we Christian channels tend to pick on each other instead of the real enemy at the gate. And so I'm hoping that brought some kind of awareness to the fact that Christians, if we really believe what we say we believe, will stand up and make a public statement. I think it at least served that purpose. And again, I'm grateful that you did that.
Hey, how was the chat? I wasn't monitoring the chat while the presentation was going on. How was it? Was there some real vitriol going on in the chat?
Yeah, I only surprisingly had to mark one guy's card once, and it stayed relatively civil for the rest of the show. In other words, there wasn't constant swearing in there and, filth. Relatively on topic as well. Obviously loads of ad hominems, which, to be perfectly honest, I'd just let slide.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, but someone brought also up the free will issue. They say, well, we don't have free will, so because God knows everything, the beginning from the end.
Wrong.
Yeah, I've gone over that in my channel, but basically there's a way I like to approach it is to say that if God is playing chess with Satan, say, okay, when the chessboard is first set up before anybody moves, there's a certain number of possible moves remaining. This is called possible worlds in philosophy. And middle knowledge is the concept of how God, just philosophically, how God could know the outcome without causing it. And basically, as soon as the white piece goes first, then the set of possible remaining moves has changed. And so on with every move. And the best chess players win not because they control the other side, but because they can think ahead to every possible world, every possible scenario of moves remaining. And that's how they're chess masters. That's how they win. They don't tell the other person how to move, but they can box them in to limit their moves because they're just a better player, not by forcing their hand to move and pick up this piece and move it over there. And that's how God controls the ultimate outcome of things without violating free will. And in my opinion, the reason that Satan did what he did and thought he had God trapped and God outsmarted him because he thought God was trapped between being loving so that he would forgive people, which means Satan himself would have to be let off the hook, or God would have to be heartless and cold and condemn the people he loved to an eternity without him because they had sinned. But his genius solution that Satan couldn't see coming and couldn't think ahead to enough possible scenarios is that he himself, God, would come down and solve the problem for us. And this is essentially the concept in, what is it? Not Infinity Wars, well, partly at the end of that, but Infinity Wars and Endgame was, how Doctor Strange thought of so many million possible scenarios where, and only one would beat Thanos. That's essentially what they were explaining there was this possible worlds idea and middle knowledge, where they could only see one scenario and it came at a price, but it worked. In the same way, I think that's how God operates, to make things come to pass and rescue mankind without violating free will. So I think free will is absolutely essential to all of that.
I can't remember which show it was, but I think it was John and someone else were discussing the knowledge of the witch path in relation to God. You remember that conversation, John?
Yeah, I have a little easier scenario to flesh this out. And we talked about it, was it yesterday? We talked about it like 2 or 3 days in a row after the shows. Were they taped?
Yeah, they were all taped. I think it was just, I'm still struggling with it. So it comes up a lot.
You're talking about the, remember I used the parade analogy?
I do. You explained about, I'll just lay it out just so if I get it wrong, I haven't understood it correctly. So you've got a parade going on and there's a person who's watching it from a top of a high-rise building, and they're the only person who has that view. So everyone else is down in the town watching the parade, and they see at the back of the line a tuba player trip over and push the drum player over, who pushes the trumpet player over, etc., etc. So the question being, did the person observing that happen cause it to happen?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did you get that one, Paula?
Yeah.
It's based on his position at the top of the 50-story building. He can see the end from the beginning. So he can see the assembly area and he can see the end of the parade. No one else can see that because they can only see the parade right in front of them. And the person on the 50-story building, he looks out at the beginning and he notices a tuba player he steps into a pothole. He trips and he knocks over like dominoes the 3 or 4 people in front of him. Now, did the person on the 50-story building cause that to happen, or did he see that based on his position?
Right, foreknowledge.
Yeah, but then they say he could intervene, right? But he doesn't, because he wants people to come to him, because God doesn't want automatons. He doesn't want robots. It's the same that we have children and we don't want robots as children, because we want to have them to have their own lives. And with life comes just choices. And that's the whole point of life.
Well, and it's the basis of quantum mechanics. It's one of the foundational truths of quantum mechanics. We went over this. Is free will.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me phrase a different question then. Does the creator, so if your origin is a creator, does he ever, to anthropomorphize him, does he ever cause wave function collapse?
Yeah, he did initially.
That's how I couldn't figure out how to phrase it beyond the initial. I don't know what word to use to say now, in this moment now, or ever in what you can call now. Does the creator cause wave function collapse?
I would say yes, and I think that would be a condition of a miracle.
That's what I thought the answer would be.
Can occur at that point, I would think.
Okay, that was the answer I was expecting, because the scenario I pitched in my mind was Christ doing a miracle.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, but it can't impact others' free will. That's the caveat.
No, you can't. He can't collapse a wave function that's to be encountered by one of us, or to put it another way, he's not going to influence our aspect of choice. I hate anthropomorphizing it into he. It's just got no other pronoun. I'm sorry.
Well, no, that's
Right.
good. That anthropomorphizing, he is a he. He is the Father, Jesus Christ.
Well, we could argue about that, but maybe another
We
time.
could,
huh?
but I don't want to infight about that particular topic. I absolutely
Right.
believe there is a creator. I'll admit to that. But nevertheless, let's not get down this rabbit hole. I don't want this to go sour. But
Right.
yeah. So
yeah, because hashtag same team.
Hashtag same team. So, but beyond miracles, I would say that in my everyday experience, there will never be, contrary to a miracle, any experience of the creator collapsing wave functions. That's just going to be me, and it's back to right at the beginning of the show when Betty was talking about the doing, the actual doing. That's what causes things to happen. Yes, you need information to begin with. Yes, the origins would be information and therefore creator. But ultimately speaking, in my day-to-day life, I'm not witnessing miracles.
Right. That's their definition, is they're rare by definition. That's why they're miracles, because they aren't supposed to happen, and they don't happen often.
And there is a biblical account where there's a guy was healed not because of the guy's faith, but because of somebody else's faith. So would somebody else's free will override somebody else's free will on that occasion? You know the one I'm talking about. I think it was the guys that let the mat down in front of Jesus, broke through the roof and let the mat down, the guys to be healed. It was Jesus said it was the faith of the men that healed the guy, not the guy, his faith of the guy. So how would that play in?
And I think that, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go.
I was just going to say, the thing about free will is it's a free moral choice. It's not that you're free to flap your arms and fly, as like a lot of people will try to say, why aren't you free to do that? Therefore, there's no free will. Well, the thing is, if we didn't have free will, we couldn't debate it. You know, the fact that we're disagreeing about it means it must exist. But the thing is that our free will is primarily a moral choice. Do you want to accept God's adoption offer or not? And that's the thing that needs to be free the most. And there's this other, beyond God or not God, there's the issue of, okay, how did you live your life based upon which branch of that tree you took? And you'll get rewards or punishments based upon that. So there's free will in our choices that we make every day, but there's certain things that God will box us in, like a fence around a playground, that I've used that illustration, where the kids are free to play whatever they want, but they can't go beyond the fence because that fence is there to protect them from the cars on the street. And God will make sure that we have this fence around us that we can't go beyond because there's spiritual danger of some sort. And so there are certain events that are prophesied, and the only way they can be prophesied is if God sees them, like your analogy with the person up on the high rise. But I think he sometimes does more than just watch, because he says that he will bring certain things about. And again, that is not a violation of free will as moral choice. So, and that's another question people has of, once I get saved, don't I have the free will to give that back up? And I'm like, no, because you're guaranteed safety. You're guaranteed, this is a big controversy in Christianity, but the thing is that we're only responsible for the moral choice, God or not God. And once we make that, our free will can be overridden, because we have, by making that choice, decided which path to take. So we still have to choose a which path, but once we do that, we still have a lot of little secondary choices to make, but ultimately the condition of our soul is a choice we make at a point in time, and that has to be absolutely free.
Sure, I could add a bit of special pleading in there somewhere. We might evolve wings, and then I can flap and fly.
Yeah.
Evolve? What's that?
Oh, God.
me growing wings in 20 generations' time because of this little mole I've got.
Mm-hmm.
It could grow into a feather. You just don't know. No, we do know. That's just nonsense. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Right.
Hey, where's Adam?
Probably watching the football. So there's a particularly low viewership today because I think most of the Brits were watching one of those games where they kick balls around.
Oh yeah, that's right. Anthony was talking about that. Yep. He
was like,
messaged me.
He said, "Do you want to postpone it?" He's like, "You sure you want to go ahead while that football match is on?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "Well, everyone will be watching the football." I'm like, "Everyone won't be watching the football. You have to be on, right?" Yeah, there might be a few less people watching because of the football, but not everyone is watching the football. I assure you of that.
Yeah, bread and play, huh? Isn't that something that gets people's minds off the real questions of life? Just keep them busy and keep them fighting for bread.
What's that you say? I was playing a computer game. Sorry, repeat that.
That's what I'm... Yeah, it's sad that people don't want to consider hard thinking about things, and yeah, they don't think.
I've got to disagree. I disagree with Paula on this earlier. So no, I do think they think about it. I think when they come across things like this, the ones that that have thought about it, even for a fleeting moment, rebel against it. So I can only draw parallels with things that I've actually seen with my own eyes, like Conspiracy Cats when he poured his heart out to Haunted House, and he details the fear of it all being a lie, that the things that he's held dear and trusted in not being the case. And that is, in my opinion, the contemplation of that is what forces people to rebel against it. In other words, it requires the contemplation in the first instance. So to say people don't think about it, I think they definitely do.
Yeah, I think so too. But they will dismiss it out of these two questions, like the two things that I said. Well, I don't want it to be true because then I cannot do this, that, and the other. Or I've had so much trauma in my life, or see so much trauma in my life, devastating things happening. So there can't be a God, right? Those two things are basically the deep psychology underneath.
Yeah, I agree.
But what are the this, and this things? What are the things that they can't do? I already know the answer. But...
Sorry?
When you say they can't do this, and this, I mean, I mentioned skeletons in the closet earlier, right? The things that people want to do, that they're precluded from doing, aren't necessarily good things. Would you agree?
Sorry,
wait a second. Yeah, you guys were stepping all over each other.
I'm saying that the things that people, when you said they can't do this, that, and the other, what you're talking about are normally bad things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually the bad things. I had a guy at work, and I said to him, well, we all have to basically hold ourselves to these 10 laws. And he said, well, what are these laws then? Because he didn't even know. And I said, I named a couple of these laws, and he says, yeah. He says, well, but I think that these 10, I have problems with these 10, maybe a couple of laws to add with these laws. I said, my God, you can't even keep 10, let alone more, right? So,
I'll make it even worse. They can't even keep the two that Jesus said. Sorry, I fussed up over something.
Go on, Paul. Sorry.
Then we can't keep 2.
I said, the problem is this. Yeah, we can't even keep 2. Jesus said, love the Lord thy God with all heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. They can't even keep the 2. So what? You adding 10 on there? So I mean, it's the same thing. Yeah. I used to get in discussion with my brother about it. It's like, you love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. If you don't, then guess what?
Yeah, the whole love my labour thing, that's come up recently off the back of a copyright strike. Have you guys heard about this from Iron Realm Media?
I heard bits and pieces.
So, Fight the Flat Earth, our neighbour, copyright striked, what they call TFR, not TFR, that's completely wrong. Iron Realm Media, right? And when in discussion, a few of the attitudes on the panel were, well, we could just do that to him. The amount of clips from us, that's all he's got, right? Taking clips of us and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, no, do unto others, love thy neighbour. That's not what I said. obviously the Bible's going to phrase it far better than I ever could. But my point is that our attitude should be that way, just so often isn't. And that's one of the this, that, and the others, right? Well, no, I can't possibly adhere to these rules, or I can't contemplate there being a God, if I'm going to paraphrase how you and Paula put it, because I'm a cheating, adulterous, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't possibly do the bad things anymore.
Savior, Nathan. That's why you're in need of a savior. Because we did all these things. All people cursed and lied and maybe stole or did things, right? And we cannot save them. If we are in front of a judge, everybody would be convicted. We all would be convicted. That's what in the Bible says, that we all are born in sin and will sin. And the only one that didn't was Jesus, and he is the intercessor. So he's basically the lawyer in front of God, and he has basically paid the bail for us to be in heaven. So we can't save ourselves.
I mean, I agree with you. I'm not ever going to compare myself to Jesus in regards to my lack of sin. I'm no angel, far from it. But by the same token, if push came to shove right now, so in the conscious living world, as you put it, I was put before a judge and got to... Well, there's a bit in a Red Dwarf program where they're put before the Inquisitor, and he basically says to them, justify your existence. And if that happened to me, I think I would do all right. You know, I wouldn't be at all fearful that I would be saying, yeah, well, there was that woman that I cheated on my wife with, or there was that bank I robbed, or, you know, there was this double dealing exercise that I took part in. I have no skeletons in my closet that I can think of that would put me in a position where I'd be totally ashamed to go before the Inquisitor, or in, you know, the afterlife before God, or at the pearly gates or whatever, you know. Whereas I think a lot of people that we actually come across, while they'd be like me, first to admit I'm of sin, I've sinned, I'm not going to pretend I'm an angel, but by the same token, I think the people we deal with are probably a lot further along into what we call sin.
Yeah, but the Bible also says if you sin in one aspect of those 10 laws, you have sinned in all.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Well, yeah, the way I look at it, and you know, I can always back this stuff up, is it's an offer of adoption. In fact, I just did an 11-minute video explaining just the really, really, really basics. Is that we are, for whatever reason, estranged from God. And he's offering to take us back, adopt us back out of this horrible orphanage place. And do we want to accept or not? It's as simple as that. Nothing can be added to it or taken from it. And how we live is the icing on the cake. It's why there's a judgment day at all. If you think about it, there wouldn't be a judgment day if it's all just pass fail. You know, salvation is itself. Do you want God or not? That's an easy, ontological primitive kind of a thing. Do you want God or not? And after that, it says it's okay, how did you live? Because there will be rewards for the people who accepted God, and there will be punishments for the people who didn't. And that's where you get into, who lived a really clean life and who did not. It does matter. It will matter, but that's not what decides whether you're adopted by God or not. It's your choice, your free will choice. Do you want to be adopted? That's all it is. And so how we live isn't going to determine heaven or hell. It's going to determine rewards or punishments. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if we get back to Nathan, with you saying, well, if I'm in front of a judge, I don't think that I have, or God as the judge, and I have to justify my life. I don't have anything to fear. Is that what you said?
Well, I compared it to the Red Dwarf episode, so, I mean, I'll have to maybe give you a bit more information about what the plot of the Inquisitor was in regards to what his parameters were. So, by your own standards, he's asking you to justify your existence.
Ooh,
so,
by your own standards, huh?
Well, yeah, so I'll give you an example. So, one of the characters is like a slob, but in terms of the way they portray him, he's got a lot more potential. So when he goes before the Inquisitor, he kind of tells him to get lost, and he's like, why should I justify my existence to you? Whereas the very vain character that's very shallow and two-dimensional says to the Inquisitor, I've brought joy to the world because I have a beautiful ass. And he says, do you think that's a good enough reason for existence? He says, yeah. He says that's a pretty shallow argument. He goes, yeah, shallow guy with a nice ass. But he gets to live where the other guy who has much more potential is essentially, condemned to disappear into non-existence or hell, however you want to call it. Because the one guy, as far as he's concerned, he's not done anything bad. He might be a shallow person, but he's not ultimately done anything that's worthy of condemning. Whereas the other person's pure lack of any enthusiasm to take life by the horns and actually enjoy life and do things with his life meant that there was other more worthy souls that could have taken his place in existence. So there you go, that's as much context as I can give you. My point being, though, that at the point that if I was to be put in that position, none of the characters were inherently evil. So none of them were there in front of the Inquisitor having to justify their evil doings. And I think in real terms, with most people, all of us at some stage do something that's bad, that could be considered a sin. So, and that's never going to ever no one's going to contradict that as far as I'm concerned. Doesn't matter how pure you are. But ultimately speaking, there's going to be a position where there's others who want to push away the idea of a creator, have everything coming from nature and kind of a benign existence, and adhere to that simply because they are inherently evil or have done truly awful things. It's just an opinion I have based on some experience which I won't divulge.
Yeah, but if you know the standards, it's not the standard whether you have a great ass or not, right? It's the standards if you do according to the 10 Commandments. So the standards are there, right? And by those standards, would you say you were guilty or not?
Don't even keep their own standard. I think they can't even keep their own standard. So I think that shows you something in their own heart that they can establish a standard and can't even keep it themselves.
Yeah, but I want to ask Nathan, if by those standards, would you be guilty or not?
By the standards of the 10 Commandments, did you say?
Yeah, you shall not lie, you shall not curse, you shall not call the Lord's name in vain, like all those things, deceive, lie.
No, of course not. That's why I juxtaposed it with the Inquisitor. That's a far easier task to kneel before, right? So no, of course not.
Yeah, but the standards are high,
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, are high.
The 10 Commandments aren't high. Go to the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah, but they are high. For people. Otherwise, everybody would held to those standards.
Those dwarf the 10 Commandments. No one can get out of the Sermon on the Mount. Nobody.
Yeah, but I just want to hear from Nathan whether he thinks that he's guilty about these 10 rules. So yes, I think, right?
Yeah, I'll be the first to admit it. I'll always paraphrase it by saying, I'm not going to be comparable to Jesus. Yes, I have sinned. I'm no angel. Those sorts of disclaimers are my way of saying no. I'm never going to meet that standard. Yeah. I know it. You know it.
Yeah. So therefore, you need a savior.
Oh, I knew it was coming.
Well, the thing is, it's a choice. Do you want to be adopted by your creator? That's it. That's the gospel message. Do you want to be adopted by your creator?
Yeah,
yes or no? That's it.
Right? He's really a father, in every sense of the word. He provides, he heals, he brings you everything you need, right? He created you. He's much like a normal father, like you are a father of your kids, and you want the best of them, but you also you let them live their lives to make mistakes, but and you hope that they always will come back to you and confess what they did wrong, and so that you can make up for that. And that's the whole point. And there's a deeper psychology in the Bible, and I think I've heard a couple of lectures by Jordan Peterson, and he goes through the Bible, especially in Genesis already, where he can beautifully describe how the family is also in the Bible, and how every role is, and the hierarchy, and why that is, and how beautiful the whole family is as a cornerstone, as a unit, right? And now in these days, you see that the whole unit is basically gone. Everybody, I think that few people know what a real family is like. Everybody's broken up and with other people again, and so it's so much more psychology in the Bible that we need to know, and that gives us solutions to how to live and to make it better.
And don't let them off the hook. I'm eating right now, or I wouldn't let them off the hook, Betty. Come on now. Don't lighten up. Go.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I know, yeah. If God is the judge, you would be in hell, Nathan. So there you go.
Yeah, shallow guy with a nice ass.
Yeah, well, you won't see that there. It's a place
I've
of
brought joy
darkness.
to the
What in
world
the world?
because I brought joy to the world because I have
wait
such
a
a beautiful ass.
Wait a second. I must have missed something going to get dinner. What the hell is that?
So vanity, huh?
Basically. No, it's just a quote from Red Dwarf, John.
Oh, okay. Carry on.
You're munching. Gee, are these crayons? What?
No, Betty. No, I don't munch crayons.
What are you munching now?
I'm not
Yeah.
from Retardia. I am munching pizza and wings.
Okay.
I love that
Good to
term,
know.
crayon muncher, because it's you have to stop for a second to kind of visualize what it means, which is why it's so beautiful. You know, anything that doesn't instantaneously mean what it means, you have to give it a little bit of visual conception. So you picture the person while you're visualizing it, who's talking when you've conceptualized it, literally like a 3-year-old sat there with a crayon in their mouth, chewing on it. It's just such a great image.
Get on to the diversion, Nathan, but you have some
Slick. Nothing gets past Betty. That was
Sorry,
two diversions right there. Neither of us worked, right?
Yeah, you need to reconsider it. There's so much depth into the Bible. It's psychology, it's law, it's love, it's history, it's prophecy, it's everything.
It's absolutely free.
Also,
That's the thing about adoption offers. You can't buy them.
yeah.
And it's a offer of a relationship. It's it's just like any real adoption, a physical adoption here is, do you want to be a part of this family? It's not just get me out of this orphanage. That's not a relationship change. And that's what all God wants, is for people to be reconciled with him. And that's all. It's, the good deeds, bad deeds come after that, because you can't scare or guilt somebody or trick somebody into a relationship. So adoption has to be absolutely free. This is why we're talking about free will earlier. It has to be uncoerced, and you have to know what you're getting into. And that's what our job is, supposedly as Christians, is to tell people, what is God like? What does he want from me? What does it mean to accept God as your creator? And do you want that or not? And that's all we should present it as, because it can't be anything more or less than that. It is a gift. And
the non-coercion, Paula, that's why I'll, big shout out to Bible literalists. Go and subscribe today, because I often don't chat in your chat because I don't want to be put in this position that I'm in right now. But nevertheless, I'll listen. And what you're doing is your show is very non-coercive. In other words, you're just presenting the information. And what I love the most about it is it's right from the, I don't know how to phrase this biblically, but from the horse's mouth, so to speak. It's right at the core, the source, the original sources. So I'm much more likely to take what you say with less salt, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's, I understand that, but there is truth in that, because people usually scare away from that bit, because it's psychology, right? Are we prepared to bow our heads before the Creator and say, I'm wrong? I mean, when you were a little child and you did something wrong, how hard was it to get back to your parents and confess that you were wrong, that you did something wrong, and that you knew that they would probably punish you for some reason, because you did something wrong. You were ashamed, right? You were really ashamed of things. And to go back to God and bow your head and say, you're very much ashamed way, like a humble way, I would say, a teachable way also, is so profound to know. And we can also be very lightly and be light about this, but this is the whole point. We have to do with these people in all these debates about evolution and globe Earth, flat Earth. Nobody is prepared to say, "Oh, right, yeah, this is something that I didn't know," or "I was wrong about this," or I called people retards while they are very valuable in other aspects of their lives.
Hashtag same team.
Exactly. Yeah. So there is so much that we have to have sort of some introspection on ourselves and say, well, I did a lot of things wrong. And who is the best to go to and has mercy on us and did something great? He sent his own son to die for us. And went to terrible atrocities and pain and martyrdom for us. How beautiful is that? But it is a thing of pride not to go back to that. And sure, he will adopt us. It's like the prodigal son. We squander our inheritance, basically, by saying, well, give us everything and I'll go away with it. I squander it and do anything that God forbids, or Dad forbids, right? And then to come back on your knees and say, well, even if I can only be a servant from you from now on, and the father being so happy that his son will come back. That's a love story, isn't it?
Oh, you got it. You got it. I love it. Very well said.
And that's the whole point. It's a beautiful the Bible is a beautiful love story. Us being rebellious, like we are in sort of a puberty in our lives, right? We are like children rebelling. But why do the youth rebel? Because they want to find out who they are, what they are, and what they want to choose. And we don't, as parents, don't want to choose for them. We want them to choose themselves. And love is unconditional, but not something that you have to go to. Because you can reject love, right? And if people reject love, then they get to a place where love is not present, and that's hell. And we can be like the religions now, why, oh my God is the God of love, and everything is love, 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 love. But that's not saying the message as clear as it can be. There is a hell, and we can deny it, but it is still there. And we can also say, well, I don't believe in hell, but I don't believe in guillotines, but I still can be killed by it. So what I try to do usually when I tell people about this is I just want to help them. And I do it from love. And they can ridicule me, they can bash me and do anything what they want, but at least their blood is not in my hands. I tried to say what I had to say. And that's the whole point.
And I think that you touched on the key, of course, is humility. And that's why people don't want to admit that they've been wrong, whether it's earth shape or creator or whatever it is. It's an act of humility to know that we're not God, to know that we're not our own creators. And that's the step that that is really the most crucial decision of anybody's life is, can you humble yourself in the face of truth? And especially before your creator, and say, I'm not the potter, I am the clay. And, I got nothing to say to you, the creator, because you created me, I'm not you. And that's an act of humility. It really is. And that's what stops most people, is that bowing, whether it's literal or, physical or not. It's that bowing of the will.
Yeah, and when that is usually happen, when people are on their deathbeds, they are weakened beyond belief, and then they think, well, is this it? And then the fear grasps them, and then they are in sort of a struggle too, and then usually they tend to reach out to God or other people that are in devastating positions. So we are in the Western world, we have it reasonably good. We have things, we can acquire things, and But usually people that are that have made a big mess of their lives, they reach out because they have nothing. They have no shame anymore. The shame is there so much so that they can only reach out to God, and that's when they usually get converted. But if you have everything, like the rich man in the Bible, he had everything, but he couldn't let that go. Right?
I have an important question. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Nathan, are you still awake?
Yeah, of course, I'm listening intently.
All right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Maybe we should let Nathan talk a little. I'm not trying to step all over you, Betty. You make tons of excellent points. What is Nathan's thoughts on this?
I haven't got anything to add.
I'm going to need a bit more.
Yeah, let's get your...
None of this is new to me. Absolutely none of this is new to me.
Sorry?
None of this is new to me. So I was raised in an extremely religious family. You know, my uncle's a pastor. My grandmother was a missionary. So, you know, none of this is new to me. I'm not saying, oh, I've heard it all before, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm saying. You know, I don't disagree. I've got nothing to add. So I don't know what thoughts you want, John.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. I'm eating. Give me a couple minutes.
I've got no cowbell.
Is this like a 7-course meal?
Yeah, I mean, I'm rediscovering a lot of the information, and I said it before on Paula's channel. So it's just not. It's the same, but it's not the same. The information is different from Paula. So it's a rediscovering of new information that I thought I had heard and brushed off in the way I'm trying not to create the impression that I'm doing now, because I'm not. But I am absolutely listening intently. But as I say, when Paula goes through her information, she cites all of the sources, how the information has been. In some instances, you go through how it would be wrongly translated. I think you can't help yourself, right, Paula?
Right.
So, you know, I know your overarching theme is to go to the nub of the original texts and the original meanings, and it's quite explicit in most instances, and it does contradict some of the things that are said in, I don't know, the Good News, or I know you don't like the King James very much, but whatever translation that you potentially have been taught from in a church. And I don't know, it's the more that I listen to this stuff, the more I realise that the kind of whole church thing is a folly. But, you know, that's obviously small potatoes to perhaps you guys who are way beyond that.
Yeah, there's, at least as part of the Christian flat earther community, is this awakening against what church has always been, and it doesn't match the New Testament at all, as far as how practices go and services and things. And I wrote a book on it called "You Are All One: Debunking Hierarchy in Christianity," because it's also a debunking of the whole churchianity thing that everybody equates with Christianity. And if you read the New Testament, it's not there. You know, it was just people living as a group, as a family, and taking care of each other, and telling other people how, you know, God wants to adopt them. And it was that simple, and it got sidetracked within a generation of the first apostles, and that is slowly coming to the forefront in recent years. And the thing is that it's such a shame that people get stuck in that mentality of, we got to follow this pastor. My pastor has to tell me this or that. Or if you don't get married in a church, you're not married, and things like that. I was telling people on the hangout I did on Christian marriage not long ago, there's nothing in the Bible that says you need a ceremony, an official, an altar, vows. It doesn't say that. It's not in the Bible. That doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that we've gotten so used to tradition and replaced what was in the Bible with that when we do hear, you know, actually read it for ourselves, it sounds foreign. And that's all I've tried to do is, for whatever reason, I would say when I was about 15, that that's about the time I'm a firm believer. Let me back up that just a little bit, that all children would go to heaven. If they died, they would go to heaven because they're innocent. But you reach a point of when you're turning into an adult, that you are responsible for yourself now, and you're at the edge where you're losing that innocence. And I believe that has to be reaffirmed. That childhood faith has to be reaffirmed. And that I did that at 15, and I was given this thirst for the Bible. It never left me for 46 years. I mean, it was an absolute gift. And so I can do nothing but that. I have to devour it. And I've still spent a lifetime doing it, and I am not at the end. So for whatever reason, God had given that to me. And that's my mission in life, it's mainly to reach Christians with what the Bible actually says, because so few Christians even really read it critically. You know, they have these Sunday school quarterlies. Any warm body could teach a Sunday school class, because you've got this literature in front of you or a video to play, and you just talk about what you feel after you read or watch it, or you fill in the blanks. And this has been going on for hundreds of years. And it's a crying shame that this is supposed to be not a religion. You know, that's what John means when he says that every time. It's not a religion. Well, we sure made it into one, didn't we?
Well, do you think if we were having this conversation 200 years ago and Hangouts on Air was all functioning like it is now, but the topic of the day wasn't necessarily space and scientism or pseudoscience, would it be where John had the, what was it he put it, science versus religion? And I said, well, in reality, that would be science versus pseudoscience, i.e. what they're classifying, or pseudoscience versus science, I should say. So where you have pseudoscience, you'd actually be substituting what they call science, and where they have religion, you'd be substituting in science. Whereas 200 years ago, there'd be the same discussion, but in regards to how the hijacking of, let's call it the word of God, has become the church, and they have hijacked that in order to take control of the people.
Right, exactly. It did happen. There was I did a series on a book called The Reformers and Their Stepchildren that follows the history of the church you never hear of. These people who didn't go along with Rome, and who didn't go along, even the Reformers split. And they were trying to keep to the Bible, and they said, you know, way back then, they're looking at the scriptures too and going, hey, this isn't right. But they were persecuted even by the Reformers.
Sorry to stop you there, Paula. Just somebody trying to get into the conversation. I think SX,
okay.
Did you have something to add?
Sorry.
No, I'm a little bit confused. I just wanted to ask, can she define what religion is for her?
What religion is?
Confused.
Yeah, it is, again, depending on who you ask. But for me, the way religion has always, what it's always meant, as far as I understand it, is certain practices and rules to placate God. Yes, it's a belief system, but because of that belief system, you do certain things. Now, the word is found in the Bible, but even then it says true religion is looking after orphans and widows in their distress and keeping yourself from being soiled by your contacts with the world. So even the Bible redefines the word and says, if you want religion, here it is. It's being kind. It's, being, walking with your Creator in his ways, and not the rituals and things like that.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Sure.
What? Exactly.
About religion, I think that is in James, the book of James. It's at the end of one of the chapters. True religion is this. And at one point in the Gospels, somebody asked Jesus, what are the works of God that we should do? And he said, to believe on the one he sent.
So she's not religious? Is that what she's saying?
Not really. I mean, I go to church, but it's a very, very laid back group of people who are all about what's in your heart and going out and feeding the poor and things like that. So that's about as religious as I get.
Okay. All right.
Well, just to put that in stronger terms, in case you wanted a contrary opinion to be put forward. So to paraphrase John, whenever anybody says, well, you're religious in context of Christianity, his reply is always, Christianity is not a religion.
Right. like I said, people turned it into that, but the Christianity of the Bible is not that. Oh,
guns and stuff. Did you have something to add to that?
Hey, I'm back. Did somebody ask something?
So religion and church is not the same thing?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I couldn't catch that.
Religion and church are not the same thing?
The religion and church? No.
Okay. No, I'm asking. I don't know the definitions.
Well, you have to make sure you're defining terms here. So religion is belief without evidence. Like I said, no matter what it is, right? It could be pixie dust or unicorns. If you believe something and there is no evidence for it, then that's religion or faith, right? Now, the church, define the church.
No, but that's what I'm asking you, because I don't know. The reason why I'm asking is I thought in the Bible Jesus left the church to build a church. So
right.
That's why I was asking.
That's not the church. Yes, that's not the church. The building is not the church. You see, that's some Roman Catholicism, Babylonian devil worship and stuff right there. The church
No. You misunderstand me, John.
Okay.
Didn't he say to, I don't know, Peter? Is that in English, Peter? He said he was going to leave the church with him, right?
Yeah, but be careful of that one. There's a pun going on.
Yeah, there's two different Greek words there where Jesus says, "You are Peter, Petros, the rock, and upon this Petra, this little pebble, I will build my church." So he's talking about Peter's faith there, a chip off the old block, so to speak, saying you have, because he had confessed you are the Christ, the Son of the living God, and that's the rock upon which Jesus would build his church, that faith. So they twist it.
Yeah, and there's a little more to that too, because listen, Michael Heiser has a really good take on this. He's one of 3 people I've heard talk on that specific verse that you're talking about, that goes much deeper than just that, because they are in a place. Where are they? Paula, it's the when he says this.
They're going to Jerusalem. I forget the exact location, but they're on their way to Jerusalem.
No, they're in a place where they're at the base of a mountain, to where it has something to do, because he said the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And the gates of hell were there because that's where the fallen angels came down. See, there's a lot of symbolism here with this too. I think we're getting off topic, but I'd have to go in and look specifically. I wish I was more well versed.
It's not off topic. The guy's asking about the metaphor when you're building a church. And you're saying there's a pun when he holds up a pebble and says you can build the church on this, essentially, but meaning faith.
Yeah, but it had, like I said,
where you get that he's meaning faith.
Well, that was going to be I led SX to ask that very question. So do you want to repeat that?
Yeah, well, where you getting that? Where you getting that he's meaning faith?
What?
Faith?
I don't understand the question.
So Paula, hold on, John, hold on. So the question is, when you're saying you use the word pun, maybe if you can expand on that, we'll get an answer to the question that SX is asking.
I'm confused.
When he holds up a stone.
Yeah.
Said it was a pun.
Yeah, it's a pun. There's some wordplay going on here between Petros, which means rock. On this rock I will build my church.
And the cornerstone, right? Yeah.
No, not the cornerstone, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. I think we're going down a road here. We're not answering the question. The church, the church isn't a building. It's born again Christians. When they speak of church back in the day, see, this church word got killed by the Roman Catholicism. They called it the way, and they held their church in houses.
Yeah, it's ecclesia, wasn't it?
Yeah, ecclesia. And it was also used for an angry mob of heathen at one point too. It's the same word, but
congregation, multitude, or how do you say? People gathering together, right?
Yeah, an assembly or gathering.
Assembly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the question that's been put to Paula is, if he's holding up a stone and saying on this pebble or on this, holding up a stone, well, how do you take that to be metaphorical? How does it get contextualized to not mean build it on a rock, build a building, when he's holding up a stone?
Well, I'm looking at the context. Starts in Matthew 16 verse 14 or verse 13. And Jesus said, he came to the region of Caesarea Philippi. He asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" Him. What are people saying about me? And they said, "Some say you're John the Baptist, others say Elijah, others Jeremiah." And he says, "What do you say?" to his disciples. And Peter answers, "You are the Messiah," or Christ, the Son of the living God. And then Jesus replies, "You are blessed, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven." So he's already turning it to a spiritualized thing right there. And then verse 18, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock," two different words, "I will build my church, and the gates of hell or Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone he was the Messiah. And it's funny that shortly after this, Peter says, "No, don't go to Jerusalem to die." And Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." To the guy he just said, "Upon this rock I'm going to build my church," he says, "Get behind me, Satan."
Right.
So it's not Peter himself that the church can be based on, because he turned around and called him Satan right after that.
Yeah, that's right. And that Caesarea Philippi, is that at the base of Mount Hermon?
I believe so.
I'm telling you, this has so many layers that I was overwhelmed when I first, because it seems benign, but it's not. It goes really deep, because Mount Hermon was the place where all the fallen angels came down. And that was why God flooded the earth. See, there's a war going on here. And that passage is, hey, Paula, was that Matthew what? Matthew 14?
16.
Matthew 14.
16.
Matthew 16 what?
I started in verse 13. Okay. And it goes down to 23.
Can you keep going a little bit more? I just want to.
Well, I was just going to say,
the full context of that.
Well, yeah.
Here's
hold on 1 second. Just 1 second. So the bit that preceded it, Paula, you said was about him contextualizing the ethereal nature of the Father itself. So you kind of you give that explanation in the middle of reading it. So can you just read the bit that preceded it that gave that in its entirety, and maybe a few verses afterwards?
Yeah, just up a bit before that, like about verse 8, Jesus says, "Why are you of little faith? Why are you talking among yourselves about having no bread?" Because they ran out of food. And he says, "Don't you understand? Remember the 5 loaves and the 5,000 people, and how many baskets of food you gathered? How is it that you don't understand that I was not talking to you about bread?" So he's using metaphors right there. He says, "You took me literally, and you shouldn't have." And then he says, "Be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees." And then they got it. They were slow. I mean, the disciples finally got it. "Oh, beware of their teachings." Okay. And it's right after that Jesus says, "Who do you say I am?" And then and Peter says, "You're the Christ, the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And then he says all that stuff about, binding and loosing, and the gates of Hades will not overcome, and I'm going to build my church. So after that, was Peter literally Satan? No, he was just saying, spiritually, that's the position you're taking right now, is the satanic roadblock trying to keep me from my destiny. So if you look at that whole, what's going on, they're walking, they're moving along places, from one place to another, and they're having this conversation. So it preceded by Jesus saying, don't take me literally. I'm not talking, when I talk about the yeast of the Pharisees, I'm talking about their teachings. And then he says, I'm going to suffer and die. And they said, okay, we're not going to take you literally now. And Jesus says, no, that part's literal. So you really have to pay attention what's going on dynamically in the conversation there. But I don't know if that answered the question or not. Because
it did for me. I don't know, SX, if you want to. Is that enough for you?
I mean, it's a lot of interpretation, but I mean, there's a lot of interpretation that doesn't say that is not in the Bible. That's what I have the problem with. When people put their own interpretation into the Word of God, I have a problem with that.
Who's doing that?
And it's fine, John.
Who
You can
is
disagree.
doing that?
But that's let me finish. But that's why you have. Then you end up with people like the other guy who was arguing that the Bible says that you gotta be a vegan, because each person is putting their interpretation on the Word of God.
There is no interpretation. There is no wrong. There is no interpretation with this. It's black and white. What are you talking about?
She said a lot of things that they're not. She said a lot of things that are not written in the Bible.
Well, no problem.
So,
just over talking. You're making generalized, right ambiguous claims, right? I'm
John,
not seeing.
John,
you need to get very
are you gonna accept that there's that?
Oh,
let me finish.
You
don't like to be interrupted.
Shut your mouth.
Let me finish.
Right?
You're not gonna let me speak. All right, go ahead.
Right.
I'm not letting you finish. I'm just gonna keep on talking because I'm not being educated by an ignoramus. Sorry, that dog doesn't hunt here. Okay?
Ad hominem. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
All right. The thing is,
ad hominem is not an argument, Joe.
It's not ad hominem. Get out of here, you clown.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
ad hominem again, my man.
Okay, both.
Follow to your own standards, please. Okay.
All right. Let me just say, it's just reading comprehension is what I'm dealing. The other guy in that debate was going outside of the text completely, changing the words, doing all that nonsense. Okay. What I'm doing, and there are people are going to disagree about interpretations sometime because it's reading comprehension. Some people can read the same text like they do with the U.S. Constitution. Some people read it and go, oh, it says this, and other people read it and go, that no, it says that. That's why we have a whole judicial branch that wrestles with those questions. So as long as they're working with the Constitution and not some other document, that's fine, and there's going to be disagreement. So there's always leeway for disagreement on interpretation, but when it has to be bounded by the text itself and by the normal rules of reading comprehension, that's where the problem comes when you go outside that bounds. So some people will interpret, the Catholic Church interprets the statement that Jesus said to Peter as that he was the foundation of a religious order, and nothing of the sort happened, because we can look before and after that in the context, right there in the text, the words as they are, and go, see what's going on here. He's talking metaphorically, and they took him literal. When he was talking literal, they took him metaphorically, and he had to try to straighten all that out. And it's because of that, if we're not paying attention, we can misunderstand what the text is saying and what Jesus means by what he's saying. So, yeah, there is some interpretation going on there, but it's within the bounds of reading comprehension and context, and not trying to bring in some outside text or turn it into a religion when there's none supported in the text. I hope that helps a little bit.
So I hope so. I mean, SX, a lot of it was contextualization as opposed to interpretation. Obviously, as Paula points out, there's going to be a certain degree of that because it's reading comprehension. So, I understand why John jumped down your throat a little bit, because in many ways I agree with Paula's explanation.
Yeah, but
hold on,
I didn't insult him or anything, man.
I'm not throwing you either.
I have never been disrespectful to him or anybody in the panel.
Okay, fine. Yes, I'm sure that's the case, but nevertheless, I'm just saying that let's take a breath. It's a contextualization that she's giving us. So, and I asked her to. So my lack of knowledge of the text in the first instance means that you're going to have to have a little bit of explanation about them being on a journey, about where they've come from, about the fact that it's explained not to take it in metaphors, which is just reading comprehension. And however, upon first listening, I can appreciate from your point of view that it sounds like Paula's giving her overriding interpretation of the text when she really isn't.
Well, I'll politely disagree with that, but yeah.
Okay,
Well,
that
this
oh,
is my
hold on,
problem.
John, hold on.
Hold on a second. No, hold on a second. This was my problem.
Yes.
Because he charged with misinterpretation. It was ambiguous. All I wanted to say, and he kept talking, that's what pissed me off. He made a charge. I just want to know specifically what he's talking about. That's it.
So what John's asking you, SX, is what specifically?
Well, to me, everything that is not written in the Bible, it's interpretation.
What you charged, I don't know who you charged, whether it be me or Paula, with interpreting. Right? I want to know specifically. There you go.
Sorry.
Take it slow. No. I would like to get to the bottom of this, because I'm not blaming you for this, Paula, but when you give the biblical text itself, you speak a little bit quicker, only a little bit, but it's just, and then your contextualization, I'm very, very careful with my words, is then expansive. So it can be misconstrued as being interpretation, which is exactly what SX is doing. But what John's trying to do with you, SX, is say, be specific. Say which particular part of text that she read, or detailed here and now, was incorrectly interpreted, in your opinion.
Well, very much everything that is not written on the Bible.
Yeah,
that's
we
not
agree.
an answer. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, I'm trying to keep him on track, John. Yeah, we agree. So if it's not written, and obviously there's been plenty of words that Paula used that weren't directly read from the text, but can you give a specific example of something that she said and then interpreted incorrectly?
Oh, man.
Go ahead.
When she talks about, like, because I don't remember everything. That's a problem. Everything that she said,
Sure.
specifically.
The problem with that is, though,
that's why,
the problem with that, though, SX, I just got to stop you. That's why John shouted at you, because then it becomes a baseless assertion.
It's not baseless, Nathan, because I'm saying everything. That's my answer. Everything that is not written on the Bible, it can be taken as an interpretation of the reader.
Sure, but beyond literally just reading from the Bible, this would be a very short conversation, wouldn't it? It would just be literally reading it, and then the stream would stop. So there's going to be a certain amount of discussion and conversation and contextualization, and what you have charged, interpretation that's incorrect. But you've got no actual demonstration or contextualization of your own to offer when making that allegation. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, the problem is that I don't remember everything that she said, and so then I guess, I cannot give you an answer. I'll apologize then.
Okay. Well,
that's what I got.
That's painfully slow to get across, and John's approach would be to say, "Shut up, you're wrong. That's a baseless assertion."
Yeah, I'm sorry for being impolite about that. I came in on the conversation a little late. I got a little hyper. I just want people to be specific. That's all I'm asking.
And to be honest, in order to avoid interpreting, we can't even read a translation. We must read it in Greek.
Yeah, right. As soon as you put the English into it, as soon as you literally translate it into English to say it on this show, you are applying reading comprehension and interpretation and a variation to a certain extent. So it's immediately open to discussion, which is good.
Right.
And there's level of context.
All right.
But there's levels of context with every passage, right? The overall writing one is the whole counsel of God. That's what you need to take into account. Then there is the local context of which he's talking, right? You can't, neither can be taken away from each other, because each got to be bounced off each other for veracity and to be internally consistent. You following me?
Yeah, people.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead. He's unmuted now.
He just said okay.
No,
I mean,
I say okay. I
perfect.
don't want to argue anymore.
Yeah, sure. We're on to we're on to a topic of the actual discussion, as opposed to the context of the discussion, which was about the church. And at one point, I'm sure you said, John, we're off the reservation here, but on the contrary, it seems this is a fascinating discussion. And I'm not saying it's because of the point I made, but my point was that when we compare pseudoscience, claimed to be science, with what they call religion, actually in this instance scientifically valid information, not a belief, then you have the same juxtaposition when you go back 200 years and they're forming churches to control the people. So it's a very appropriate subject when what most mainstream people consider to be the Bible or the Word of God or religion, it's contextualized within that building, that church. So I think it was an excellent question, SX, as much as you got the tail end of an argument about the actual points in discussion rather than of discussion. I hope I phrased that correctly.
Yeah, back to the question, what's the difference between religion and the church? And we asked to define it. Well, the church is not a building. The church is the bride of Christ, which is born again Christians. We're talking about a people group here, right? Where religion is belief without evidence. And we already have evidence. I don't see where the dispute is here.
No, the main question for me was for me to try to, because you gotta understand that English is my second language, so I was trying to understand the difference between those two words and for me to understand. That's why I asked in the first place.
Yeah, religion has nothing to do with this.
And for me, I thought church was a congregation of people. That's what I thought it was.
Well, it kind of is. I mean, it's a group of people, but what it is not is rituals and hierarchy and buildings and all those things that trappings that go with it. But it is a gathering of people.
Yeah, so the Roman Catholic Church corrupted this, right? Remember from the beginning, go back to Genesis 3. Go back to Genesis 3. What are two of the two main tactics that Satan's going to use? Number one, outright denial of the word of God, right? What did he do to Eve in the garden? He didn't say that, right? He didn't say that. That's not his word. He's not going to do that. And then, it'll be yeah.
And then yeah, look at what you can get if you do what he said not to do, even though he didn't say it.
He has no other tactics. No other tactics than those two, and he uses them all the time. Well, that shouldn't surprise you, right? What's he going to do?
He can copy, plagiarize. He can plagiarize, deceive by plagiarism, like making false images of the same thing.
Well, what's he going to do? He's going to change the word, right? How many denomination of so-called Christians do we have? How many Bibles do we have? Shouldn't be a surprise. He told you that back in Genesis 3.
Yeah.
So, but there's always a true vine. The Creator gave the true vine. You have to find that true vine. How do you do that? Well, internal consistency. That's how you do it. The whole council.
There's also an intercessor.
Yeah,
John.
That's true.
So this is a question. This is not for fighting, but I thought Jesus Christ got rid of the Old Testament to give us a new covenant, or how you say it? I thought that was the whole point of Jesus being here.
No, he can't.
Well,
go ahead, Paula. This is in your lane.
Yeah, there's a lot of I could say. I'm trying to narrow it down, but yes, Jesus came to fulfill everything in the laws of Moses to the letter because nobody else could. And when he did, when a contract is fulfilled, it doesn't keep going. It's done. He fulfilled it. He did everything. So because whoever then is belongs to him, because they are identified with him and his perfection, then they have already met all the requirements. So that is the New Testament. He even said at the Last Supper, he passed around the cup of wine and said, "This is me signing the new covenant in my own blood." And not that the wine was actually blood. The Catholic Church totally ruins that. They don't know, they don't understand how metaphors work. But what he's saying is this is a symbol of the fact that I am signing a new covenant in my own blood. And so that's the New Testament. That's what it means. New Testament is a new covenant.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. There's so many rabbit trails. Every time there's a question, it's like, which branch am I going to take on this one?
Yep. There's no doubt about it. There's so many layers. It's like an onion. However, remember the whole counsel of God. Take into it the whole counsel of God. Does it line up? That's what I would say.
That's the thing is, I always look at the way the devil tempted Jesus in the wilderness. He used scripture and quoted it accurately. The devil did. What was wrong with it? And the thing is, the devil wouldn't have done that to tempt him if he didn't know he was doing something wrong. He did it because he was tempting. And so when he quotes scripture accurately, he's up to no good, even though he's quoting it accurately. And Jesus countered with scriptures. And the point is that balance, what you're talking about, the whole counsel of God is balance. You can't just take one scripture on a topic. You have to take the others.
Can I say something here?
Sure.
Can you repeat what the devil, what their intentions were?
It says that the scripture says that the devil let him out into the Holy Spirit let him out into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. So the purpose was temptation, trying to get Jesus to sin, right?
And then you said that the reason why he was going to tempt him because Jesus was going to do something or something like that?
Well, no, what I'm saying is that in the reason, the way that Satan was tempting Jesus was to quote scripture to him. He said, it says right here, if you jump off this tallest point of the temple, that the angels will catch you and you won't get hurt. It says it right there. Why don't you do it if you want to prove yourself as the Son of God? So he's tempting Jesus to disobey God, but he's doing it by quoting scripture accurately. So the need for balance is what Jesus showed. He said, he quoted another scripture that says, don't put God to the test. So
but these things that Jesus went through, these temptations, account for every Christian.
Right. And that's what the reason I brought that up is because of the larger context of the problem of Christians disagreeing and misinterpreting because they're not considering the whole body of work, the whole Bible as a whole.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
The whole counsel of God. It's really important, man.
I think that's a problem. Each Christian has their own interpretation of the Bible.
No,
that's
wrong.
where the problem resides.
Nope. That's.
I think,
is there absolute
in my
truth?
opinion.
Is there absolute truth then? Is there absolute truth? Is the question.
Yes.
Can you repeat that, John? I lag on my cell phone. Sorry. Can you repeat the
sorry
question?
about that. I'll repeat it again. Is there absolute truth?
Yes, there is.
Now, if you say, because most things in Scripture, whether you when you come out of eschatology, are black and white. Now, Jesus was supposedly, according to the Bible, executed, right? Correct?
Give me a second.
John, I'm so sorry, man. I'm lagging. I cannot hear you.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
So maybe somebody else, Paula, maybe.
So it's just looking for a yes. He was saying Jesus was executed. If you can just say yes.
Oh yeah, of course.
Right. Is there any interpretation with that in Scripture? Is there another interpretation?
Not that I know.
See what I mean? Most things in Scripture, God puts in black and white. There's no interpretation needed. It's just is what it is. God says what he says, and he says what he means.
And I would add that God is a perfect transmitter, but we're imperfect receivers. So we're fallible human beings. We're going to misunderstand. We're going to miss our reading comprehension. We're dealing with texts from thousands of years ago in another language, another culture. There's going to be misunderstandings and
bias.
Yeah. And people, as many times as I read the Bible, you catch something new every time, because it's like looking at a gem with 1,000 different facets. Wow. And you just turn it a little and you see something different.
That's exactly how I say it. Wow.
And that's right. Somebody says something about their biases. I think that's the biggest problem. People inserting their biases on the Bible, like the guy who was debating you about the veganism. He somehow find a way to manipulate in his head the word of God to mean that you should not eat meat, right? And then people were doing that on slavery. They were doing the same thing. So I think inserting your own biases on the Bible, it's one of the big problems that people have.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
But what's the final arbiter of truth? It's Scripture itself, right? So it's taking the whole counsel of God. Let's see what this gentleman's saying. Point me to the Scriptures, being specific, right? That's what we need.
And not cherry pick.
Right. And I need a break. I haven't had supper or anything, so I'll take
All right.
back. All right. I'll be back.
Yeah, people make
all right, guys. I'm out. John, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to fight with you. I mean, I'm here to have a conversations and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And
me
thank
too.
you,
Me
Nathan.
too. Right
I guess,
back at you.
are you gonna say again?
And me too. Right back at you. Sorry, I got a little hyper with you. Maybe
That's
it's the
right,
audio too.
I know how you are.
A lot of problems. Yeah. I'm
Nathan,
sorry.
are you
I'm
gonna
sorry
stream
too, man.
tomorrow?
Say again. Can you repeat that?
Nathan, are you gonna stream tomorrow?
We're going to stream tomorrow. Yeah. What day is it tomorrow? Sunday? No. There will be a debate though, so feel free to check out the Sunday debate, which will be. This will go out before, so the Ballbusters after show will go out before the Flat Earth debate. I can't remember which number it is off the top of my head, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity to actually round out this after show. So first and foremost, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who have joined us in the premiering stream, hopefully for smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the Ballbusters. So that's Paula, Betty, and Quantum Eraser. Again, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel who joined us on the Discord server. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next Ballbusters.